Chapter 5566. Reeks. Interesting. I thought you were just here to mine. I didn't expect there to be such an interesting thing. Lin Yi pinched his chin and smiled. Neither his eyes nor his divine sense found anything unusual. Because of this, Lin Yi's interest was greatly increased. Danger often came with opportunities. At this time, if Azure Dragon was here, he might be able to see some clues. Even Jiao Yazi could provide some advice. Unfortunately, Azure Dragon did not follow him here. Jiao Yazi could still speak in the secular world, but in the ancient small world, there was no movement. Lin Yi could only judge the situation by himself. After raising his vigilance, Lin Yi walked in again step by step. He slowly approached the previous position and extended his divine sense to the limit. At the same time, he paid close attention to the changes in the space of the jade pendant. Strange. Was it really a mistake just now? After arriving at the previous position, there was no abnormal phenomenon. Lin Yi muttered to himself. His body slowly relaxed from a highly alert state and returned to its previous relaxed state. Just at the moment when Lin Yi relaxed, an invisible attack appeared strangely behind Lin Yi. It seemed that Lin Yi had calculated all the angles that Lin Yi could dodge. Ha! It really came out. Lin Yi seemed to have relaxed his vigilance. In fact, he was only relaxed on the outside but tense on the inside. When the attack came, Lin Yi directly changed into the state of the primordial spirit and let the attack pass through his incorporeal body. The Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm also followed the path of the attack and hit back. Unfortunately, this palm did not hit any enemy. In the end, it only hit a few pieces of ore. Hey, it's really fast. Lin Yi condensed his primordial spirit again and looked at the small hole made by the Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm with slight surprise. His divine sense covered every inch of the space around him. Yuan. When he was attacked just now, Lin Yi's divine sense finally saw what sneak attacked him. It was a spirit beast about 1 meter long. It looked like a pangolin, but Lin Yi clearly knew that it was definitely not a pangolin. Although he had never seen it before, when he was in the Blue Cloud sect, Lin Yi happened to read the name of this spirit beast. Spirit-eating beast. The introduction of the spirit-eating beast was also very simple, found in the spirit jade vein. Feeds on spiritual power. Ferocious and likes to kill. Good at hiding, good at escaping through the earth. When thinking about this, Lin Yi couldn't help but furrow his brows. From what he had observed with his divine sense, that spirit-eating beast was only at the early stage of the nascent soul realm. If it was just one spirit-eating beast, as long as he was vigilant, it wouldn't be a big problem. However, spirit-eating beasts never lived alone. If there was one, there would definitely be a second. If these two had already given birth, there would be a third and fourth. Lin Yi felt helpless when facing this spirit-eating beast. If Jin Weifeng or even Ling Tianyu were to encounter a spirit-eating beast, they would be caught off guard and would be ambushed by it. What are the 4 big sects and clans doing? Don't they know that there are spirit-eating beasts in the Ghost Spirit Jade Immortal Vein? Or are they trying to weaken the strength of the 10 juveniles so that they won't be able to threaten the 4 big sects? If that's the case, the Shangguan clan should have told me about it. Lin Yi thought to himself. He had to find Jin Weifeng and the others as soon as possible. Right now, Lin Yi really wanted to ask someone if there were any serious casualties when he was collecting the spirit jades. However, even if there were, it would be considered as an internal conflict between the 10 juveniles and used to cover up the existence of the spirit-eating beast. Yu too. Lin Yi's mind was spinning rapidly, but he didn't let his guard down. After knowing that it was a spirit-eating beast that was ambushing him, Lin Yi didn't dare be careless anymore. After all, it was a spirit-eating beast, but it wouldn't be the only one. The damnable thing was that not only did the spirit-eating beast know earth movement techniques, but it also knew concealment techniques. Even Lin Yi's divine sense could only capture the spirit-eating beast's movements the instant it launched its attack, let alone his naked eye. Lin Yi was feeling a little helpless against an enemy like this. A divine sense attack suddenly descended from above, approaching Lin Yi's head in an instant. At the same time, a spiritual attack struck Lin Yi's back like a poisonous snake, aiming straight for Lin Yi's heart. two spirit-eating beasts. Lin Yi's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't panic in the slightest. As he transformed into his soul form again, 3 divine sense vortexes appeared out of thin air, surrounding the spirit-eating beast behind him. When he transformed into his soul form, the divine sense attack would deal the most damage to Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi had the divine controlling bracelet, so he didn't take this divine sense attack to heart. Instead, he took the opportunity to grab a spirit-eating beast and beat it to death. If it weren't for the fact that the soul-hooking palm took a little more time to release than the divine sense vortexes, Lin Yi would have immediately used the soul-hooking palm. The spirit-eating beast was simply too fast, and Lin Yi didn't dare to let go of even the slightest delay. Sure enough, he caught the spirit-eating beast that was ambushing him from behind. Yu 3, under the pull of the consciousness whirlpool, the soul-eating beast let out a pained howl, and the other soul-eating beasts rushed out, attacking Lin Yi without a care for anything else. Lin Yi had the protection of the divine controlling bracelet, and after blocking the initial divine sense attack, he transformed back into his soul form again, unleashing a 5-elemental killing intent toward the spirit-eating beast above. For a time, they were evenly matched. This was also because the spirit-eating beast above was only at the peak of the Golden Core stage and hadn't reached the nascent soul stage. Otherwise, with Lin Yi's soul only at the perfected foundation establishment stage, even his 5-elemental killing intent wouldn't be enough to contend with a nascent soul stage spirit-eating beast. The soul-eating beast that was trapped in the consciousness whirlpool suddenly roared, opening its mouth to spit out an extremely condensed beam of light. Lin Yi was shocked. He didn't need the jade to warn him. Just the aura alone was enough to tell him how dangerous this beam of light was. Even if he turned into his soul form, he would still be fatally injured. Lin Yi suddenly had this realization in his heart, and he didn't dare to hesitate at all. He crazily used the extreme butterfly micro-steps and continuously swayed back. It was not easy for him to avoid the pursuit of this beam of light. When he looked up again, the 2 spirit-eating beasts had already disappeared. What a powerful spirit-eating beast! Lin Yi's face was solemn. The spirit-eating beast's outburst just now was probably a life-saving trump card. But in any case, this spirit-eating beast was an extremely dangerous existence, especially for Ling Tianyu, a cultivator at the perfected foundation establishment stage. A casual claw could easily end him. Chapter 55-67. Returning to the battle site, there was still no trace of the spirit-eating beast, nor was there any more attacks from the spirit-eating beast. Lin Yi estimated that the early nascent soul stage spirit-eating beast had injured its foundation, plus Lin Yi's divine sense whirlpool was not for nothing. At this moment, the early nascent soul stage spirit-eating beast should have been seriously injured. If he had the time, Lin Yi really wanted to find the soul-eating beast's lair. This kind of soul-eating beast fed on spirit jades, and it was said that there would be good stuff in their lair. Unfortunately, Ling Tianyu's group's safety was the most important thing right now, and Lin Yi couldn't stay here any longer. Since he couldn't find the soul-eating beast, he might as well stay alert and speed up. With Lin Yi's speed, if he really ran at full speed, he could break the speed of sound. After a while, he had already run hundreds of kilometers away, but because of the twists and turns, the straight line was not too far from the previous battle site. What made Lin Yi feel strange was that along the way, there were basically some waste or poor veins. Why did the 2 spirit-eating beasts go there? With the nature of spirit-eating beasts, they wouldn't even look at a rich vein. In other words, there was something hidden in that area that could attract the soul-eating beasts. Lin Yi felt that after finding Ling Tianyu and the others, he'd have to come back and take a look when he had the time. As mentioned before, danger and opportunity always went hand in hand. At this moment, Lin Yi heard the faint sound of fighting. In the spirit jade immortal vein, not only was divine sense suppressed, but true chi fluctuations were also absorbed. On the contrary, the transmission of sound was not restricted. Lin Yi immediately ran towards the place where the sound came from. No matter who was fighting, it was a good thing to be able to find the person first. After approaching, Lin Yi found that it was Yi Qingcheng of Yiling sect and Yun Feiyang, of Yun sect fighting. Obviously, it was for a rich vein on the side. This was the first time Lin Yi had seen a rich vein after traveling so far. Although it was not a lot, one person could mine it for 7 to 8 days without stopping. It was more than enough to complete the quest. However, if 2 people worked together, it would only take 3 to 4 days. After that, they would have to search for other rich veins. It was no wonder that the 2 would fight over it. The void bag could not be robbed, and it would be useless. However, before the spiritual jades were put into the void bag, they were ownerless. Whoever could put them into their void bag would own them. They did not know where the next rich vein would be. If they did not rob it now, when would they? Lin Yi was also speechless. There were at least 2 spirit-devouring beasts nearby. Were they really not afraid of being eaten by the spirit-devouring beasts as snacks? Stop! Lin Yi immediately shouted after appearing. The 2 of them were evenly matched, and neither had the upper hand. When they discovered that someone was interfering, they immediately stopped and retreated at almost the same time. When Enchanting saw that the person who had arrived was Lin Yi, his face immediately lit up with joy. He smiled and greeted, "Master Lin, what a coincidence. You're also nearby." Lin Yi nodded at Enchanting and said, "Sect Master Yi, did you see Ling Tianyu of the Thousand Blades sect and Jin Weifeng of our Blue Cloud sect?" Enchanting shook his head and said, "I didn't. After this junior teleported here, I only saw this guy. He is Yun Feiyong of the Cloud Guide sect. The Cloud Guide sect is a subordinate sect of the Qianquan sect. It seems that every time the Qianquan sect's subordinate sect teleports to the vicinity of the rich vein, so this junior couldn't help but make a move." Yun Feiyong took a step back and looked at Lin Yi and Enchanting with a vigilant expression. Enchanting alone was enough to give him a headache. Now that Enchanting had to call himself a junior, Yun Feiyong obviously could not fight them alone. Lin Yi looked at Yun Feiyong with an indifferent expression. He didn't have any special thoughts about the Cloud Guide sect, and he had never had any dealings with them before. Therefore, he couldn't just kill Yun Feiyong just because he was a subordinate sect of the Qianquan sect. In fact, the Snow Sword faction was also a subordinate sect of the Qianquan sect. Previously, Yu Taizong and his group were more familiar with the Qianquan sect, but now that it was Bing Wuqing, the relationship between the Snow Sword faction and the Qianquan sect had become much weaker. If not for the fact that Lin Yi didn't ask the Snow Sword faction to join the Shangguan clan, and Bing Wuqing didn't want to do anything, the Snow Sword faction wouldn't have become a subordinate sect of the Qianquan sect. What's the point of you 2 fighting each other? There are so many spiritual jades here. Even if both of you mine them together, it will still take you 3 to 4 days to mine them all. If you have the time, why don't you get some more spiritual jades and find another place to mine them? Lin Yi didn't want to get involved in the dispute between the 2, so he just tried to persuade them. To be honest, the amount of spiritual jades in this section of the rich vein was much less than the amount of wasted spiritual jades Lin Yi had just collected. It would be great if they could mine around 8 to 10,000 spiritual jades, and that was why Lin Yi didn't care about it at all. Enchanting didn't expect Lin Yi to say something like this. When he saw Lin Yi, he thought he had found a powerful ally and that the Cloud Guide sect wouldn't have a share in this rich vein. However, it seemed like Lin Yi didn't want any spiritual jades at all. If the Blue Cloud sect didn't mine the spiritual jades after entering the Spirit Jade Immortal Vein, it meant that the Blue Cloud sect didn't want to be ranked among the top 10 small sects. Of course, Lin Yi wouldn't explain that he didn't want to mine these spiritual jades. He still kept his divine sense spread out to the maximum range, just in case the soul-eating beasts decided to attack again without any preparation. However, the soul-eating beasts didn't notice anything, but Lin Yi noticed that someone was rushing toward them from another direction. It was the other supreme elder of the Yin Cloud sect, Zhou Baixiang, a peak mid-nascent soul realm cultivator. Lin Yi's eyes flickered. Teleporting randomly, the 2 of them were actually in the same area, and they were even approaching each other. It was impossible that they didn't have any special methods to do this. Did they have some way to sense each other's location, or did they have some way to directly communicate with each other? Yun Feiyong seemed to have also sensed Zhou Baixiang's arrival. After turning around to make sure, his face immediately lit up with joy, as if he had found a pillar of support. Supreme Elder, I'm here. Yun Fei-yong waved his hand in greeting, then turned to Lin Yi and said, You're called Lin Yi, right? I advise you to mind your own business. This is a matter between the Een Cloud sect and the Leaf Spirit sect. In other words, it's a matter between the Qianquan sect and the Heaven Awakening sect. Your Azure Cloud sect shouldn't get involved. Lin Yi raised his brows and said with a smile that wasn't quite a smile, Oh, you think I'm meddling? To be honest, I hate meddling the most. However, if you're talking about the Qianquan sect and the Heaven Awakening sect, then it doesn't seem like it's meddling anymore. Should I meddle? Chapter 55-68. Lin Yi ignored him and turned his head to the other side. He had to admit that this part of the vein was located in a passageway that extended in all directions. It was easy for people to find it, and he didn't know how it had been preserved until now. Rainin. This time, when Lin Yi discovered that the person who came was actually Jin Weifeng, it was really a pleasant surprise. At least it saved Lin Yi a lot of time searching. Master Uncle, this is great. Disciples' luck is really good to find Master Uncle so quickly. Jin Weifeng saw Lin Yi and immediately ran over with a smile. Humph. 2 newly advanced nascent soul cultivators and a so-called Master Uncle who popped out of nowhere. Do you think that Blue Cloud sect can rise again? I don't know if those sects are stupid. Why didn't they challenge your Blue Cloud sect? Maybe if they challenge you, Blue Cloud sect will directly fall from the top 10. Zhou Baixiang saw that Lin Yi ignored him, and he did not know why, but a burst of anger emerged in his heart. A prideful person would never be able to tolerate being ignored by others. Lin Yi continued to ignore Zhou Baixiang and smiled at Jin Weifeng. I am relieved to see you. Did you encounter any danger? Did you see Ling Tianyu and the others? No, I didn't encounter any danger, and I didn't see Ling Tianyu and the others. Jin Weifeng laughed and said, I didn't find any spiritual jades either. Along the way, there were only waste veins. It was not easy to find a place with abundant spiritual energy, but I didn't expect there to be so many people here. Zhou Baixiang's face was already a bit black. Now, not only was Lin Yi ignoring him, even that kid from Blue Cloud sect was ignoring him. It was really intolerable. Lin Yi pointed at the rich vein and said, There are a lot of spiritual jades here, but they found it first. I was just persuading them not to fight over it and mine it together. Yun Fei-yong sneered and said, I found it first. Why should I mine with him? If you know what's good for you, scram. Don't think that you are awesome because you have more people. Our Yin sect is least afraid of numbers. Oh, what a big tone. My martial granduncle is giving you face by persuading you. Old man, you don't even want face. Come, let me see how much weight you have. Jin Weifeng was unhappy. In his mind, Lin Yi was a godlike existence. How could he allow himself to be humiliated by mere people from the Cloud Guide sect? But after saying that, Jin Weifeng immediately turned around and asked Lin Yi, Martial uncle, can this disciple teach this old man a lesson? Of course, Lin Yi would not object. The reason he brought Jin Weifeng here was to give him a chance to gain experience. Yun Fei-yong was a suitable whetstone. The two of them were equal in strength. Jin Weifeng lacked experience, but Yun Fei-yong had just fought with Yi Qingcheng. The two of them were about the same. Go. The Yun sect isn't afraid of numbers. They're afraid of having too few people. So, you should be fine by yourself. Lin Yi made a rare joke. Jin Weifeng and Yi Qingcheng both smiled knowingly, but the two people from the Yun sect became even more furious. Yun Fei-yong did not say anything. When he saw Jin Weifeng come out, he immediately opened the fan in his hand. After pouring his true qi into it, he waved it with all his strength. For a moment, wind and water rose, and a mist filled the air. Jin Weifeng unsheathed his long sword, and the sword light flashed, cutting the mist that Yun Fei-yong had sent out into several areas. Then, under Yun Fei-yang's horrified gaze, Jin Weifeng's sword went straight for the vital point on Yun Fei-yang's chest. What a fast sword! Yun Fei-yong was shocked, but he did not dare to be careless. He closed his fan and the fan blade, which was made of black steel, slashed across the vital point of his chest. Originally, he had wanted to block the tip of the sword, but Jin Weifeng's sword was too fast. The tip of the sword could not block it and could only hit the body of the sword, causing it to deviate slightly. A drop of blood splashed through the air from the tip of the sword. Although it was not a serious injury, it was enough to make Yun Fei Yang's heart go cold. Jin Weifeng was just an unknown disciple of the Blue Cloud sect, but he was able to injure him in one move. When Jin Weifeng grew up, how terrifying would he be? Jin Weifeng's sword did not contain any killing intent, so after it was deflected by Yun Fei Yang, it only hurt Yun Fei Yang a little. But Yun Fei Yang had already figured out Jin Weifeng's strength. Although they were both at the early nascent soul stage, Jin Weifeng's combat ability was clearly higher than Yun Fei Yang's. Zhou Baixiang saw this scene and frowned slightly. His face was as gloomy as water. Originally, he thought that the Blue Cloud sect's nascent soul stage cultivators had just advanced, so their combat ability was definitely not that good. He did not expect things to be completely different from what he thought. Jin Weifeng was also a little excited at this moment. This was his first time fighting with a nascent soul stage cultivator other than Xianijia. After his sword was deflected, Jin Weifeng took the opportunity to sweep across, and at the same time, he also used a low-level martial skill. Although Yun Fei Yang was shocked, he did not panic. After all, he was a veteran nascent soul stage cultivator. With just a few steps, he dodged Jin Weifeng's sword attack. Then, he continued to attack, defending against Jin Weifeng's attack while waiting for an opportunity to counterattack. Yi Qingcheng, who was on the side, was a little stunned. He and Yun Fei Yang were evenly matched. How did Jin Weifeng gain the upper hand as soon as he went up? If that was the case, wasn't Jin Weifeng stronger than him? However, thinking that Jin Weifeng was someone who followed Lin Yi, it did not seem strange for him to have such a performance. The two people who were fighting released martial skills continuously. For a moment, the sword chi was everywhere and the clouds were lingering. However, it did not last long. Soon, the winner was decided between the two of them. Yun Fei Yang was hit continuously. Fortunately, they were only punches and kicks. There were no fatal injuries, but he looked a little embarrassed. Jin Weifeng pointed his sword at Yun Fei Yang's throat and laughed. How about it? Are you convinced now that the Blue Cloud sect is not to be trifled with? The Blue Cloud sect is not to be trifled with. Do you think that the Yin Yun sect is to be trifled with? Zhou Baixiang suddenly shouted. He reached out and slapped Jin Weifeng's chest. With his peak nascent soul stage strength, if he hit Jin Weifeng, even if he did not die, he would be seriously injured. Lin Yi's eyes turned cold. He was about to attack, but after seeing Jin Weifeng's calm face, he suddenly changed his mind. Since he wanted to sharpen his sword, he might as well use a better whetstone. Yun Fei Yang did not seem to be qualified, so this Zhou Baixiang might be a good whetstone. After Zhou Baixiang, would Jin Weifeng's future Blue Cloud sword shine differently? Chapter 5569. Reeks. Sink the tip of the sword 3 inches, shift it 1 inch to the right, strike in an arc. Just as Jin Weifeng felt that he could not deal with it, Lin Yi's voice suddenly sounded in his ear. Out of respect and trust towards Lin Yi, Jin Weifeng did not think and subconsciously followed Lin Yi's instructions. The long sword, which seemed to have sunk into a swamp, suddenly smoothly broke through Zhou Baixiang's Jin Qi and penetrated through it without any hindrance. In the blink of an eye, it had already reached the dead angle of Zhou Baixiang's armpit, causing Zhou Baixiang to break out in cold sweat. 9 illusory cloud body. This was the highest level movement technique of the Yin Yun sect. Zhou Baixiang naturally used it with ease. Although Jin Weifeng's sword was unexpectedly fast and unavoidable, it completely missed in front of the 9 illusory cloud body. Jin Weifeng's experience in fighting was indeed not rich enough. When he thought that his sword would definitely hit, he was immediately startled. In a fight between experts, how could such a mistake be tolerated? Moreover, Jin Weifeng's strength was much weaker than Zhou Baixiang's. Zhou Baixiang seized the opportunity to launch a counterattack, a martial technique coming from a tricky angle. Lin Yi continued to use his qi to quickly transmit take a step forward, backhand release vacuum sword wave to the right rear, left hand release rocket-like cannon fist to the right front. What Lin Yi said were the more practical middle-level martial techniques of the Green Cloud sect. They might not be very powerful, and in a battle of Yuanying stage, they might not be able to cause much damage, but they were superior in terms of release speed. After Jin Weifeng received the guidance, his body had already moved according to Lin Yi's instructions. After taking a step forward, although he was still within the attack range of Zhou Baixiang's martial technique, he avoided the most powerful frontal attack. Following that, the vacuum sword wave hit Zhou Baixiang's martial technique from the side, causing the rest of the attack to miss. Jin Weifeng was completely frightened but not in danger, and survived this attack unscathed. Yu won. Not only that, when Jin Weifeng punched out with the soaring cannon fist Lin Yi mentioned, there was clearly no one there. If it weren't for his trust in Lin Yi, Jin Weifeng would have thought that he had missed. However, at the same time the fist power erupted, Zhou Baixiang had strangely appeared at that spot, as if he was rushing to get beaten up. Amidst a loud explosion, the 9 illusion cloud body was unable to shake off Jin Weifeng's attack. Zhou Baixiang, who was caught off guard, was forcibly pushed back 2 steps by the soaring cannon fist, a martial skill that couldn't be considered powerful. Jin Weifeng himself was also pushed back 2 steps by the recoil. On the surface, it seemed that both sides were evenly matched. Only Zhou Baixiang knew in his heart that he was at a complete disadvantage in these 2 rounds. All his attacks and defenses seemed to be within Jin Weifeng's calculations. If this continued, he would definitely lose. This discovery made Zhou Baixiang very shocked. Jin Weifeng was just an early-stage nascent soul cultivator, but he couldn't gain any advantage. On the other side, there was an even more unfathomable Lin Yi. Today's matter, no matter how he looked at it, he would definitely suffer a loss. Stop. Zhou Baixiang saw that Jin Weifeng was still excitedly rushing forward, so he hurriedly took a few steps back and raised his hand to shout. If it was Lin Yi, he wouldn't care what the enemy said. He would still continue to fight. However, Jin Weifeng, this honest child, really stopped and asked with a suspicious look, "What? Do you want to convince him?" Zhou Baixiang's old face turned red, and he coughed twice. "What do you mean by not convinced?" This old man wanted to say that the time we have here is very limited. Don't waste time fighting here. Let's just mine these spirit jades together. This was admitting defeat. Even if he didn't admit it verbally, it was clear that he was admitting defeat. Jin Weifeng was very excited. Martial Uncle Lin Yi was truly powerful. With just a few words of advice, he was able to deal with a peak mid-nascent soul cultivator so easily. Lin Yi didn't want to waste any more time, so he immediately waved his hand and said, "Forget it, I'll leave this place to you. There won't be much spirit jades for 5 people to mine." Yi Qingcheng was slightly startled. They clearly had the absolute upper hand, so why did he suddenly give this place to the cloud-attracting sect? What he didn't know was that Lin Yi was currently in a hurry to find people. Moreover, this place wasn't far from where the 2 spirit-eating beasts were. Lin Yi wasn't at ease leaving Yi Qingcheng and Jin Weifeng here to mine spirit jades. As for whether or not Zhou Baixiang and Yun Feiyang would be targeted by the spirit-eating beasts, that was none of Lin Yi's business. Sect Master Yi, the most important thing right now is to find your fellow sect members. Let's give the spirit jades here to the cloud-attracting sect. In any case, the nearby spirit jades are quite sparse, and I reckon that this isn't an area where the rich veins are concentrated. Why don't you come with us? Lin Yi glanced at Yi Qingcheng and invited him to go with them. This was also for Duanmuyu's sake. Otherwise, Yi Qingcheng wouldn't have received such care from Lin Yi. Yi Qingcheng reluctantly looked at the broken rich vein and helplessly nodded. Then this junior will follow Master Lin. I hope Master Lin will take care of me. If Lin Yi and Jin Weifeng left, Yi Qingcheng clearly wouldn't be able to compete with the 2 from the cloud-attracting sect. Thus, Yi Qingcheng was very straightforward. After seeing the situation clearly, he didn't have anything else to say. Zhou Baixiang clearly hadn't expected things to turn out this way. If he had known things would turn out like this, he would have admitted defeat earlier. What was the point of wasting so much energy? He had almost died. Lin Yi couldn't be bothered with the two from the cloud-attracting sect. He called out to Jin Weifeng and led them in another direction. By the way, does Sect Master Yi know of any way to contact others after entering the Spirit Jade Immortal Vein? After walking for a while, Lin Yi suddenly thought of how Zhou Baixiang had run over. Although it could have been a coincidence, Lin Yi felt that wasn't the case. After all, Yi Qingcheng was a veteran sect master of one of the 10 minor sections. This wasn't the first time he had come to the Spirit Jade Immortal Vein. When he heard Lin Yi's question, he immediately smiled and said, "If you want to talk about contacting others, the only way is to use an immemorial communication pearl. However, this item is quite precious. It isn't as practical as a void bag, but its value is about the same. Very few people have communication pearls." Lin Yi nodded. This communication pearl sounded similar to a mobile phone. If he had the chance, he could use one to play with. Chapter 50, 570. Reeks. In this case, the two from the Cloud Guide sect should have a tool that could determine each other's position. It was probably lent to them by the Qianquan sect. If there was a chance in the future, he could consider borrowing some tools from the Qianquan sect to study. As the three talked, they had unknowingly walked a long distance. Lin Yi still maintained enough vigilance to prevent another sneak attack from the spirit-eating beasts. This kind of creature was also a very vengeful species. After suffering a loss in the hands of Lin Yi, it would never give up easily. Finally found it. Lin Yi first heard the sound of mining, and then he found the trace of Ling Tianyu in his divine sense. He couldn't help but reveal a faint smile on his face. This kid's luck was pretty good. Although he didn't teleport to a rich vein, he also didn't directly go to a waste vein like Lin Yi. In any case, he found a poor vein. After such a long time, he had already dug out a dozen good spiritual jades. If it was someone with the strength of immemorial invincible realm, he might have already harvested 100 or 80 spiritual jades. Lin Yi turned to Jin Weifeng and Yi Qingcheng and said, "Ling Tianyu is in front. You two go and bring him over. I will wait for you here." "Okay, Martial Uncle, please wait a moment." Jin Weifeng immediately ran over without saying anything. Although Yi Qingcheng was curious why Lin Yi didn't simply go with him, he didn't dare to raise any questions and could only follow Jin Weifeng. After the two turned a corner, Lin Yi directly took out 50,000 spiritual jades from the space of the jade pendant. These were all brought from the heavenly stage island. The 50 to 60,000 spiritual jades that he had collected before were not completely filled yet. Lin Yi planned to let the three of them divide these spiritual jades. Judging from the rich vein just now, one person could at most obtain 10,000 spiritual jades in 10 days. Yu won, thinking about how the primordial pugilistic world could only mine 200,000 spiritual jades in a year, and they still had to use it for cultivation, distribution, and circulation as currency. It was indeed difficult to make ends meet. It was no wonder that the purchasing power of spiritual jades was so strong. Wow, so many spiritual jades. Am I seeing things? Jin Weifeng was the first to return. After seeing the spiritual jades all over the ground, he immediately shouted. Lin Yi ignored him and called out to the shocked Ling Tianyu. "Master Lin, did you excavate all these spirit jades? How did you do it so quickly?" Yi Qingcheng was completely convinced by Lin Yi's prowess. He wanted to kneel down and worship him. It was no wonder that Lin Yi didn't have any thoughts about that rich vein. Compared to collecting so many spiritual jades, that rich vein was nothing. However, Yi Qingcheng didn't understand how Lin Yi could take out so many spiritual jades. Didn't he say that the void bag couldn't be taken out once it was placed inside? Lin Yi didn't explain and just waved his hand indifferently. These spiritual jades can be divided among the three of you. It should be enough for the void bag to send you out. The three of them didn't ask how Lin Yi had taken out the spiritual jades. In any case, they were already used to Lin Yi's mysteriousness. Instead, the meaning behind Lin Yi's words surprised them. You too. Grand Uncle Master, do you want the three of us to leave first? Jin Weifeng had an unwilling expression. It wasn't easy for him to train by Lin Yi's side. How long had it been before he had to leave? Lin Yi nodded and said in an unquestionable tone, "That's right. Something has happened here. You must leave immediately. Otherwise, I won't be able to look after you all. As for the others, I'll also have them leave immediately after I find them." "Master Lin, just what happened? Weren't you all fine just now?" Yi Qingqing asked carefully. He didn't want to leave immediately either. It was rare for him to have a chance to build a relationship with Lin Yi. Leaving now would be a bit of a waste. "There's no point in telling you. Just trust me." Lin Yi didn't want to tell them about the spirit-eating beasts. Just now, with two people following him, Lin Yi was confident he could look after them. But with three people, it would be a bit difficult. He couldn't be sure whether the spirit-eating beasts were secretly watching them or not. The best way was to send them away. Hearing Lin Yi say this, the three of them couldn't say anything else. They divided the spiritual jades on the ground and waited for their void bags to light up before teleporting out. After sending the three of them away, Lin Yi finally relaxed. He went to the poor vein that Ling Tianyu had mined before and stored all the jade waste on the ground into the jade pendant space. This place had obviously been mined many times. There were 50 to 60,000 pieces of jade waste on the ground, more than what Lin Yi had just taken out. It would be too wasteful not to store them. You three, why haven't the two spirit-eating beasts come yet? Is it because the damage caused by the spiritual sense vortex is too heavy, so they can't come for revenge? Lin Yi had been waiting for the spirit-eating beasts to come, but it seemed that the damage suffered by the spirit-eating beasts was more serious than he had imagined. Especially the last explosion, it had lost a lot of vitality. Forget it. It doesn't matter if these two spirit-eating beasts don't come. I'll go find the others first and see what the situation is like. After collecting the jade waste, Lin Yi continued to move forward quickly. However, 3 days passed in a row, and he didn't encounter a single person. This was completely different from the first day when he encountered someone. Standing in another waste vein area, after collecting the jade waste left on the ground, Lin Yi also felt a headache. In the past 3 days, he had been wandering around, and basically all the waste veins and poor veins he had collected were more than 1 million pieces of jade waste, which was not a small amount. However, he couldn't find anyone from the 10 young spirit veins. Logically speaking, in this kind of place with more waste veins and poor veins, he should be able to meet Immemorial Invincible and Soaring Heaven Sect. Unfortunately, he didn't. Lin Yi could only continue to move forward in a certain direction. What made Lin Yi feel strange was that in these 3 days, the spirit-eating beasts did not appear even once. This was somewhat not in line with the spirit-eating beast's temperament. Could it be that the spirit-eating beasts had not recovered from their injuries? It was very tiring to be so vigilant all the time. Just as Lin Yi was muttering to himself, his nose faintly smelled a trace of blood. Lin Yi's expression suddenly changed, and he rushed at full speed in the direction of the smell of blood. After turning 2 corners, they saw a broken corpse lying in the middle of the passageway. Underneath the body was a pool of dark red blood. Judging from the degree of coagulation, this person had died not too long ago, about an hour ago. Chapter 50, 571. His dantian has been torn open, and his golden core has been dug out. There are scratches on the corpse. Could it be the work of a soul-eating beast? Lin Yi raised his vigilance to the highest level after a careful examination. Not only did soul-eating beasts like to absorb spiritual energy from spirit jades, but the golden cores and nascent souls of human cultivators were also great nourishment for them. Therefore, Lin Yi had reason to suspect that this soaring sect elder had been killed by a soul-eating beast. It seemed that it wasn't that the soul-eating beast didn't chase after Lin Yi, but that it couldn't find Lin Yi at the moment. As for this unlucky fellow, he was obviously just a snack for the soul-eating beast. Lin Yi looked around and made sure that the soul-eating beast had left. Then, he waved his hand and created a hole in the tunnel. He moved the soaring sect elder inside and buried him with rubble. After all, he was from an allied sect, so it was only right for him to restrain himself a little. After doing this, Lin spread out his divine sense and continued to move quickly. He finally found someone. Although it was a dead person, it at least meant that there should be traces of humans in this area. Perhaps he could find someone else soon. He just hoped that it wouldn't be another corpse. After a while, Lin found one of the 10 youngsters, and it was a familiar face. Bing Wuqing. Apart from Bing Wuqing, there were also 2 soul-eating beasts. They were surrounding Bing Wuqing and launching a series of attacks. If it wasn't for Bing Wuqing's strengthened merciless ice force, which could effectively reduce the speed of the 2 soul-eating beasts' movements and attacks, Lin might have seen Bing Wuqing's corpse. When Lin saw this, he naturally joined the battle without another word. This time, he had enough time. Lin immediately used the soul-hooking palm in an attempt to kill at least 1 soul-eating beast at the beginning. However, when the soul-hooking palm approached the target, it was suddenly blocked by a layer of transparent light that appeared around the soul-eating beast's body. What? Does this spirit-eating beast also have a divine controlling bracelet? Lin was shocked. 3 days ago, the knowledge whirlpool had been able to cause great damage to the spirit-eating beast, so there was no reason that even the soul-hooking hand could not cause any damage after 3 days. When Bing Wuqing saw Lin Yi's arrival, her eyes immediately lit up, and a look of pleasant surprise appeared on her cold face. The ice soul sword emitted a dazzling light, and after forcing back a soul-eating beast, she finally found the time to call out, "Boss Lin." Lin nodded in agreement. He then reminded, "Be careful, don't let them escape." The spirit-eating beast's ability to escape was definitely top-notch, especially after combining their earth escape and concealment. Lin Yi's divine sense was unable to detect any traces of them, unless they launched an attack. Bing Wuqing's heartless ice force could cover a relatively large area, and these 2 spirit-eating beasts had nowhere to hide. Since the soul-hooking palm was ineffective, Lin simply released the knowledge whirlpool again. He wanted to see if it was because his divine sense attacks were ineffective, or if the soul-hooking palm was ineffective against the spirit-eating beasts. The results proved that the knowledge whirlpool that was effective before had lost its original power, and all of its attacks had been blocked by that layer of light. However, after Lin Yi's continuous attacks, the spirit-eating beast that was being attacked also revealed a human-like expression of panic. It screeched twice, turned around, and ran away with the other spirit-eating beast. Although Lin wanted to stop them, his divine sense attacks were ineffective, so he really couldn't do anything about it. In the blink of an eye, the 2 spirit-eating beasts disappeared without a trace. Lin suddenly had some guesses in his heart. Those 2 spirit-eating beasts were able to resist divine sense attacks, so it was very likely that they really had a tool similar to the divine manipulation bracelet. However, the strength of Lin Yi's primordial spirit far surpassed those 2 spirit-eating beasts by more than a level. Even the divine manipulation bracelet couldn't resist the divine sense attacks of such a difference, unless the spirit-eating beasts had a tool of a higher level than the divine manipulation bracelet. However, the number of times that the divine manipulation bracelet could resist was probably not many, or else these 2 spirit-eating beasts would not have fled. "Boss Lin, thank you for coming over this time. Otherwise, I would have been in danger." Bing Wuqing put away her ice soul sword and ran over to meet up with Lin. At the same time, she wiped the cold sweat off her forehead, and an expression of lingering fear appeared on her face. It was already quite rare for Bing Wuqing's expression to fluctuate. Lin smiled and said, "It's also fortunate that you encountered these 2 spirit-eating beasts. If it had been someone else, even if they were stronger than you, it would have been very difficult for them to escape unscathed." Spirit-eating beasts. Boss Lin, are you saying that those 2 are spirit-eating beasts? Bing Wuqing looked a little incredulous. It was obvious that she had heard of the spirit-eating beasts before. "If you've heard of them, then why didn't you recognize them?" Lin asked casually. His mind was still on guard against the possibility that the spirit-eating beasts might return and launch a sneak attack. "I've indeed heard of them, but I've never seen them before." "So, this is what spirit-eating beasts look like," Bing Wuqing said with a nod. Seeing that Lin looked a little distracted, she did not continue the topic. Instead, She asked, Boss Lin Yi, how many spirit jades have you mined? This is a rich vein. Why don't we mine here together? We only have a little more than 6 days left. If we continue to look for other rich veins, we might not make it in time. Lin Yi used his divine sense to observe. The rich vein, where Bing Wuqing was at, actually did not have many reserves. It was about the same as the one at the Yinyun sect, or perhaps even less. Bing Wuqing had mined for 3 days, and estimated that she had already mined more than 2,000 spirit jades. Her harvest was not bad, but of course, it was impossible for Lin Yi to mine the spirit jades with her. The place you've teleported to is not bad. Looks like the Qingquan sect still values your Snow Sword sect. Lin Yi said with a chuckle. The Snow Sword sect was a sect under the Qingquan sect. Lin Yi already knew that, but he was just joking. Among the original 10 minor sects, the Yinyun sect, Snow Sword sect, and Okuda clan were under the Qingquan sect, while the Everyday sect, Evil Warding sect, and the Heaven and Earth sect were under the Five Element sect. The Leaf Spirit sect and the Xuanyu sect were under the Heaven Awakening sect, and the Shangguan clan was under the Soaring Sky sect and the Blue Cloud sect. Every time there was a spiritual jade mining, it was basically the Qingquan sect and the Five Elements sect that benefited from it. Almost all the others would be teleported to poor, or even useless veins. Bing Wuqing curled her lips and said, Boss Lin Yi, you know that the relationship between the Snow Sword sect and the Qingquan sect has faded a long time ago. Whenever you want us to switch sides, you can just say the word. Chapter 5572. Keep these spirit stones. Once you're done with your harvesting mission, you can leave. Lin Yi took out 15,000 spirit stones and handed them to Bing Wuqing so that she could activate the Void Bag's teleportation ability and leave this place first. Bing Wuqing had long been immune to Lin Yi's miraculous abilities. She didn't even wonder why he took out so many spirit stones and immediately kept them. Thank you, boss, but I don't want to leave yet. Those 2 soul-eating beasts dared to ambush me. I can't just leave with my tail between my legs. Bing Wuqing kept the glowing void bag, but she had no intention of leaving. Lin Yi didn't mind. He nodded slightly and said, That's fine. You're strong enough to protect yourself. Let's wait and see. If necessary, use the void bag to leave this place. Yes, Boss Lin Yi. Bing Wuqing agreed and didn't say anything else. It was basically impossible to count on Bing Wuqing to take the initiative to chat with others. Lin Yi didn't have any topics to talk about either, so the 2 of them moved in silence. Gradually, the spirit jade veins reserves became more abundant. There were almost no wasted veins left, and there were poor veins everywhere. Rich veins could also be seen from time to time, and the frequency of attacks from the spirit-devouring beasts also gradually increased. Another 5 days passed. During this period, Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing encountered more than 30 surprise attacks from soul-eating beasts. Fortunately, they were all daunting but unharmed. However, the other members of the 10 young ones weren't so lucky. At least 1 corpse appeared from the Everyday sect, Evil Warding sect, and so on. This time, what appeared in front of Lin Yi was the corpse of a golden core from the Okuda family. Fortunately, there didn't seem to be any nascent soul experts who had fallen so far. However, that didn't rule out the possibility that they were already dead but hadn't been discovered by Lin Yi. Wuqing, it seems like there are more than 2 soul-eating beasts. Lin Yi looked at the golden core corpse and frowned deeply. Just now, Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing had just encountered a wave of attacks, and when they turned around, they discovered this corpse. Judging from the traces and time, it shouldn't be the 2 soul-eating beasts that had attacked Lin Yi. Bing Wuqing nodded slightly and said, Indeed, the claw marks on this carcass are thicker and more solid than those of the previous 2 soul-devouring beasts. If I'm not wrong, this soul-devouring beast's abilities should be above those of the previous 2. Lin Yi had also noticed this. After so many battles, he had learned that spirit-eating beasts weren't completely immune to divine sense attacks. As long as he could exert enough destructive power in an instant, he would be able to break through the spirit-eating beast's external defenses. For example, his divine sense pill flame vortex was extremely destructive, but the soul-reaping hand was far less lethal in comparison. Because of this, Lin Yi wasn't too worried about the appearance of new spirit-eating beasts. His only question was how many spirit-eating beasts were there in the Spirit Jade Immortal Vein? Wuqing, you mentioned spirit-eating beasts before, so you seem to know little about them.
Why don't you tell me about them?
Bing Wuqing didn't continue talking about spirit-eating beasts before, so Lin Yi didn't ask too much. But now that the situation had changed, it was more appropriate to ask. Bing Wuqing nodded and said, "Okay, I thought you weren't interested, so I didn't ask." Lin Yi couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard this. It really took a little patience to communicate with an ice cube like this. Actually, I don't know much about spirit-eating beasts. I've only heard a little about them. These creatures are cruel and vengeful, which is obvious from the way they chased after us. Other than that, spirit-eating beasts all live in families, so if a spirit-eating beast appears alone, there will definitely be other spirit-eating beasts nearby. Many people have overlooked this and been killed by spirit-eating beasts. Lin Yi basically knew everything that Bing Wuqing said, so there wasn't anything special about it. But hearing this again helped Lin Yi sort out his thoughts. For example, this golden core corpse in front of him might not have been killed by one spirit-eating beast, but at least two. And they were even more powerful than the two spirit-eating beasts that Lin Yi and the others had encountered. What the hell, Wuqing? We might have entered the lair of spirit-eating beasts. Lin Yi chuckled and said casually. Then he began to condense his vital energy and two kinds of alchemy fires into a bomb. At this time, if they were really besieged by more than 4 spirit-eating beasts, Lin Yi wasn't sure if he and Bing Wuqing would be able to hold on. It was better to take advantage of the time they had and quickly prepare their trump cards. Big Boss Lin Yi, I heard that the lair of spirit-eating beasts is usually located in the most essence of a spirit jade mine. Moreover, spirit-eating beasts have a habit of collecting treasures. The best things on the bodies of those who are killed will be taken by the spirit-eating beasts as spoils of war. If we really find the lair of the spirit-eating beasts, it might not be a bad thing. Bing Wuqing didn't look worried at all. Firstly, she was confident in her own strength. Secondly, she was even more confident in Lin Yi's strength. With this reason, even Lin Yi probably wouldn't have anything to say. Before you think about victory, think about defeat. Before we find the lair of the spirit-eating beasts, we'd better be prepared to be besieged. Wuqing, listen carefully. If we really are besieged by the spirit-eating beasts and your heartless ice aura can't hold on, you must teleport out immediately. Otherwise, you'll drag me down, understand? Lin Yi spoke very seriously, afraid that Bing Wuqing wouldn't agree. Unexpectedly, Bing Wuqing nodded readily and said, "Yes, Big Boss Lin Yi. I'll definitely do as you say." Actually, if Lin Yi had insisted a little more 5 days ago, Bing Wuqing would definitely have left immediately. After all, Bing Wuqing would definitely listen to Lin Yi's words. It was precisely because Lin Yi didn't seem to mind that Bing Wuqing suggested to stay behind and work together with Lin Yi. Since Bing Wuqing had agreed, Lin Yi didn't say anything else. As long as Bing Wuqing left, he could release the super alchemy fire bombs he had prepared without restraint. He wouldn't have to worry about accidentally injuring Bing Wuqing. Let's go. I think we're almost at the lair of the spirit-eating beasts. Lin Yi continued to condense super alchemy fire bombs in his hands. He gestured for Bing Wuqing to follow him and continue forward. More than 8 days had passed since they started mining. Those who were still alive should have mined quite a lot of spirit jade. Perhaps they had all left the spirit jade celestial vein. Hence, the frequency of rich veins appearing became higher and higher. However, not a single person could be seen. Chapter 55-73. Watch out. Lin Yi yelled in a low voice and threw out the super alchemy firebomb that he had prepared earlier. The target was 3 soul-eating beasts that were moving in the same direction. He didn't tell Bing Wuqing to leave immediately because the super alchemy firebomb contained the divine sense alchemy fire. Lin Yi could barely control the direction of the explosion. Although he couldn't completely control it, at least most of the power would be directed toward the 3 soul-eating beasts. Bing Wuqing's merciless ice force should be able to withstand a small portion of the explosion's aftermath. This was the first time Lin Yi had used the super alchemy firebomb. Lin Yi hadn't used this move against the soul-eating beasts in all their previous battles. Firstly, the soul-eating beasts were too fast, so the alchemy firebomb couldn't hit them. Secondly, Lin Yi didn't think that the two soul-eating beasts could pose a fatal threat to him and Bing Wuqing, so he didn't need to use this move. Therefore, the soul-eating beasts didn't expect to encounter such a destructive attack. Under the influence of the merciless ice force, the three soul-eating beasts froze for a moment. Then Lin Yi's super alchemy firebomb flew toward them. In the huge explosion, the entire mine tunnel was almost destroyed. This was even after Lin Yi had intentionally controlled the direction of the explosion and released the power toward the tunnel as much as possible to avoid affecting the surrounding rock walls. The aftermath of the explosion was less than 10%, but it still caused Bing Wuqing's merciless ice force to shatter instantly. Lin Yi used his extreme butterfly subtle steps to pull Bing Wuqing back in a sorry state. Even he, the initiator of the explosion, didn't expect this situation. Almost all of the three spirit-eating beasts that had been struck by the explosion had been reduced to nothingness. Regardless of whether they were able to defend against physical or spiritual sense attacks, in the face of a super core flame bomb that was a mixture of true qi and two types of core flames, all of their defenses were useless. The only spirit-eating beast that had managed to survive had launched a sneak attack from behind Lin Yi and Lin Yi, and it had no time to deal with Lin Yi and Mo Tiange in the midst of the commotion. However, as soon as the commotion in the passageway subsided slightly, it let loose a blood-curdling roar and attacked Lin Yi and Mo Tiange with all its might. Lin Yi raised a hand to unleash a super pill flame bomb that he had just condensed. Due to the fact that it had only just been condensed, its power was completely incomparable to the previous one. However, the spirit-devouring beast just so happened to pounce toward him with its mouth wide open, so Lin Yi's attack just so happened to fly into the spirit-devouring beast's mouth and explode with a bang. It wasn't very powerful, but it was enough to severely wound this spirit-devouring beast. After all, its mouth didn't have any powerful defensive abilities. "Wuqing, you move on your own," Lin Yi suddenly said. After transforming into his primordial spirit form, he instantly caught up to the injured spirit-devouring beast. After this spirit-devouring beast was injured by the explosion, it didn't even care about revenge anymore. It immediately activated its concealment and earth escape techniques, disappearing into the rocks in an instant. After so many experiments, Lin Yi finally found a way to keep up with it, and that was to use the intangible nature of his primordial spirit form to unleash the Chu family's pursuing shadow. Of course, Lin Yi's pursuing shadow wasn't perfect, but with the assistance of the intangible nature of his primordial spirit form, it was still enough to deal with the spirit-devouring beast. In particular, the spirit-devouring beast still had a sliver of divine sense left behind by Lin Yi's core flame bomb. Before Bing Wuqing could say anything, she could only watch in astonishment as Lin Yi and the soul-eating beast disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Sensing that it was heavily injured, the spirit-devouring beast quickly traversed through the rocks. Meanwhile, Lin Yi's primordial spirit stuck closely to the spirit-devouring beast. If it weren't for the spirit-devouring beast leading the way, although Lin Yi's primordial spirit could also enter the rocks, it definitely wouldn't be able to move so quickly. After a while, the injured spirit-devouring beast had brought Lin Yi thousands of meters underground. Suddenly, the pitch-black underground suddenly opened up. Lin Yi's eyes lit up, and he saw that he had entered a spacious underground space. At the very bottom was a small stream that emitted a gentle light, but the stream was flowing with extremely pure spirit energy. Spirit vein marrow. Lin Yi was shocked, and he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was something that only existed in legends. Out of 100 supreme-grade spirit veins, there might not even be one that produced spirit vein marrow, let alone those high, middle, and low-grade spirit veins. A supreme-grade spirit vein without spirit vein marrow, once it was completely mined, it would become an ordinary mountain range. but a supreme-grade spirit vein with spirit vein marrow. As long as there was no problem with the spirit vein marrow, there would be an endless supply of spirit jade to be mined. The primordial small underworld was lacking in spirit jade, and it was completely because there was too little time to mine. If one could enter the spirit jade, celestial vein to mine spirit jade 365 days a year, the amount of spirit jade here would probably not be inferior to that of Heaven Island. Moreover, with this spirit vein marrow, there was no need to worry about the spirit jade being completely mined. Chapter 55-74. The elderly voice of the spirit-devouring beast seemed to have chuckled, but there was no hint of a smile on its face. You don't need to be wary, I have no ill intent. Whether it's through strength or luck that you were able to make it here, you must be fated with our tribe. As you can see, there is the essence of the spirit vein here, and that is enough to prove that I have no ill intent. If we were to fight here, any violent fluctuations could completely destroy the essence of the spirit vein. That's not something you want to see, is it? The old spirit-devouring beast spoke slowly, and it seemed to be a little out of practice due to not speaking for a long time, so it took a long time to say this. Only now did Lin Yi understand why the old spirit-devouring beast hadn't taken the initiative to attack. The divine sense flame vortex he had unleashed earlier was still a spiritual sense attack, so it wouldn't have caused the essence of the spirit vein to become unstable. If Lin Yi had unleashed a divine sense flame bomb, the old spirit-devouring beast would most likely have fought with its life on the line. Before Lin Yi had a chance to speak, the injured spirit-devouring beast let out a sharp cry, as if it was saying something to the old spirit-devouring beast. The old spirit-devouring beast listened in silence, before sighing with a hint of sorrow in its voice. Is that so? Are all three of them dead? Were they killed by this human? But if you don't go after them, they won't kill you, right? You don't need to be sad. Our tribe will grow up again. What's important is the future. Lin Yi raised an eyebrow. He had already discovered with his divine sense that there were 5 fist-sized eggs in the giant piece of spirit jade beneath the old spirit-devouring beast, and there were already faint spiritual chi fluctuations emanating from them. These should be the descendants of the spirit-devouring beast, right? He wondered which of the 3 that had died. In that case, the essence of the spirit vein was one thing, and these eggs were another. The old spirit-devouring beast really wouldn't do anything to harm Lin Yi for the essence of the spirit vein, and the 5 eggs in case something unexpected happened, and the entire spirit-devouring beast clan was wiped out. Human, I'm very sorry. Although you killed 3 of my descendants, it was only because they attacked you first. Casualties in battle shouldn't be a source of hatred. I hope this matter will be settled and written off, all right? The old spirit-devouring beast spoke slowly, and it seemed to be very sincere. Lin Yi already knew that he had the upper hand, so he replied in an indifferent manner. Write it off. You spirit-devouring beasts are bloodthirsty, and have attacked me no less than 30 times along the way. You've even killed several of my companions. Do you think you can erase all of this with a simple sentence? What do you want? Although I have my reservations, if you want to die, we both of you, of our spirit-devouring beast to be spirit vein. I want half of this essence of the spirit vein, and you have to return all of the human belongings that you killed to me. Lin Yi stated his conditions very straightforwardly. Although he didn't say he wanted all of the essence of the spirit vein, it was already an exorbitant demand of half. In any case, it was just a negotiation, so he was just asking for an exorbitant price. That's impossible. The old of the spirit-devouring beast refused without hesitation. Human, you have to understand that this spirit jade immortal vein has been the home of us spirit-devouring beasts for tens of thousands of years. You came here to mine the spirit jade, which is trespassing on our home. However, we spirit-devouring beasts have never killed every single one of you. At most, we only kill a portion of you humans. It's not that we're bloodthirsty, it's because the golden cores and nascent souls of you humans are the best material for nourishing the essence of the spirit vein. Since you need the spirit jade, shouldn't you make some contributions? Lin Yi was stunned. He had never thought that there would be such a reason behind the bloodthirsty and cruel nature of the spirit-devouring beasts. The golden cores and nascent souls of humans were dug out by the spirit-devouring beasts, not to be eaten, but to be used to nourish the essence of the spirit vein. Human, the essence of the spirit vein can be consumed in small amounts, but not in large amounts. Otherwise, it'll be very easy for the spirit jade immortal vein to completely dry up. We spirit-devouring beasts have done nothing wrong in order to protect our home. Many spirit-devouring beasts have died at the hands of you humans, so there's actually no right or wrong between us. The old of the spirit-devouring beast spoke in a slow and unhurried manner, but his words were very reasonable. Linny took a glance at the essence of the spirit vein. In reality, he knew that he couldn't really take the essence of the spirit vein away. After all, the primordial underworld still had to rely on the spirit jade of the spirit jade immortal vein in the future. 10 days a year, 20 people limit, it's all your spirit-eating beasts doing, right? Lin Yi suddenly changed the topic and asked about something that seemed completely unrelated. You're the one who set this rule, aren't you? The old of the spirit-devouring beast fell silent for a moment before replying. You really aren't an ordinary person to be able to see through the truth with just a glance. That's right. This restriction was indeed modified by us spirit-eating beasts based on the natural ancient formation of this immortal vein. After all, this is the home of us spirit-eating beasts, and we spirit-eating beasts feed on the spirit chi within the spirit jade. We can't possibly give you humans too much. Lin Yi chuckled coldly. You opened it for 10 days just to let our golden core and nascent soul cultivators in, right? Otherwise, if foundation establishment cultivators came in, you wouldn't have any materials to nourish the essence of the spirit vein, right? In order to dig up as much spirit jade as possible within the 10 days, the 4 big and 10 small children had sent their most powerful cultivators to the spirit jade immortal vein, which then became the prey of the spirit-devouring beast race. The old of the spirit-devouring beast fell silent for a long while, as if to express a tacit agreement. Lin Yi didn't beat around the bush anymore and said indifferently, I don't want to get involved in what happened in the past. From now on, the spirit jade immortal vein will only be open for 6 months every year, and the limit is 200 people. I don't care if you want to hunt down golden core and nascent soul cultivators. This is the law of the jungle, so there's nothing more to say. Do you agree or refuse? Give me an answer. 200 people in half a year, that's too much. The old of the spirit-devouring beast hurriedly opened its mouth, but it was cut off by Lin Yi. Agree or refuse? Lin Yi narrowed his eyes, and his gaze was as cold as a knife. He flipped his palm over to reveal the divine sense pill firebomb that he had been condensing for a while. The old of the spirit-devouring beast roared as it sensed the terrifying energy fluctuations emanating from Lin Yi's palm. Even if you want to destroy the essence of the spirit vein, you have to listen to me. Otherwise, it'll be a life and death struggle, and no one will have any spirit jade to use. Is this the ending you wish for? Chapter 55-75. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. He clearly didn't expect the old spirit eater to be so unyielding. It seemed that the conditions just now were really beyond his bottom line. All right, speak, I'll listen. Lin Yi pondered for a moment and gave the old spirit eater a chance to speak. However, he was still condensing the super pill firebomb in his hand. The more time passed, the more powerful the super pill firebomb would become. For Lin Yi, this wasn't a bad thing. The old spirit-devourer beast heaved a clear sigh of relief, and he slowly said, Let's not talk about how many spirit jades we'll have to mine in half a year. Do you think we'll have a chance to hunt down those 200 people with our current numbers? Isn't it more likely that we'll be hunted down instead? Without the nourishment of golden cores and nascent souls, the marrow of the spirit vein won't increase. Coupled with your mining and the consumption of our clansmen, although the spirit jade can be regenerated through the marrow of the spirit vein, the marrow of the spirit vein will slowly dry up. This was a reasonable statement, and Lin Yi couldn't refute it. If the limit of 200 people came from the 10 young ones, it would be a family of 20 people. They might split up after coming in, but from Lin Yi's experience, they would quickly gather together. As long as the 10 young ones didn't fight among themselves, it wouldn't be easy for the remaining 2 spirit eater beasts to ambush them. It was useless for the Spirit Eater beasts to kill the Foundation Establishment disciples. Once the Golden Core and nascent soul cultivators gathered, it was just as the old Spirit Eater beast had said, it was uncertain who would be the one to kill who. In this way, the reserves of the Spirit Jade Immortal Vein would very likely be slowly depleted. Even if there was the marrow of the Spirit Vein, it wouldn't be able to withstand such unbridled mining. We Spirit Eater beasts don't just hunt the Golden Core and nascent souls of the human race. Even after our clansmen die, the Golden Cores and nascent souls left behind will also be used to nourish the marrow of the Spirit Vein. After all, the marrow of the Spirit Vein is the foundation of our clan. As long as the marrow of the Spirit Vein exists, we Spirit Eater beasts can continue to thrive and survive here, the old Spirit Eater beast said sincerely. Lin Yi was a little moved after hearing this. You said that your golden cores and nascent souls are also used to nourish the marrow of the spirit veins? This news came as quite a shock to Lin Yi. Generally speaking, as long as the golden core and nascent soul of a spirit beast were undamaged, they would be protected by their brethren even if they couldn't reform their physical bodies. In the future, it was very likely that they would be used as trump cards to save their brethren. However, the Spirit Eater Beast clan had used their golden core and nascent soul to nourish the marrow of their spirit veins. They were vicious to others and vicious to themselves. However, this made Lin Yi have some vague ideas. He needed to sort them out for the time being, so he didn't continue. Of course, as I've said just now, the marrow of the spirit vein is the foundation of the Soul Eater Beast clan. It is a very honorable thing to contribute one's golden core or nascent soul for the survival of our clansmen. Our clansmen view it as a sacred ritual, just like how our own life will continue to be reborn in the blood of our descendants after merging with the marrow of the spirit vein. At this point, the old Spirit Eater Beast's expressionless face revealed a rare hint of holiness. It seemed that this so-called ritual was indeed very important to the Spirit Eater Beast clan. Lin Yi nodded. He could understand the old Spirit Eater Beast's words. As for whether he agreed or not, it didn't matter. What was important was that he had already sorted out his thoughts. You mean that the golden core and nascent soul used to nourish the marrow of the spirit vein are the same for spirit beasts and humans? Even if we don't use the marrow of the human race, we can just use the golden core and nascent soul of spirit beasts? Lin Yi had to figure this out. This was the most important point. Since the Azure Cloud sect was going to become the leader of the four great sects, it was very necessary to protect the production of spirit jade in the spirit jade immortal vein. There was no better way to protect the marrow of the spirit vein than the Spirit Eater Beast clan. Now that he knew that the Spirit Eater Beast clan wasn't as described in the ancient records, Lin Yi didn't mind finding a path that both sides could accept and achieve a win-win goal. You're right. In reality, the golden core and nascent soul of spirit beasts are both inner cores, and the inner cores of spirit beasts are more suitable for nourishment than the golden core and nascent soul of humans at the same level. The old Spirit Eater Beast answered Lin Yi's questions straightforwardly. Then, why don't you let the human race use the inner cores of spirit beasts to exchange for the spots to mine spirit jade? I believe the human race would be willing to accept such an exchange. After Lin Yi finished speaking, he realized that his words were a little inappropriate. If that was possible, why wouldn't the Spirit Eater Beast clan do it? Sure enough, the old Spirit Eater Beast shook his head. Spirit beasts are rare to begin with. How many spots can we exchange for with the inner cores of spirit beasts? Furthermore, if we do that, we'll expose the truth about the existence of our Spirit Eater Beast clan. When that time comes, the human race will most likely hunt us down at all costs and seize the opportunity to take over the entire Spirit Jade Immortal Vein. Even the marrow of the Spirit Vein will be secretly taken by the selfish human race. Lin Yi was left speechless by the old Spirit Eater Beast's evaluation of the human race. This was the deep-rooted bad habit of many humans, so there was really nothing more to say. How many people in the entire primordial era were like Lin Yi who didn't even covet the marrow of the spirit vein? You have the formation, so you shouldn't have to expose yourselves. Lin Yi couldn't comment on the human race's temperament, so he could only change the subject. That's indeed the case, but without any prior communication, how did you know that we could use the inner cores of spirit beasts to exchange for the spots? As long as there was communication, the existence of our spirit eater beast clan would inevitably be exposed. However, now that you've appeared, you can act as a bridge between our spirit eater beast clan and the human race. The question is, how many inner cores of spirit beasts can you find? Also, high-grade spirit beasts are extremely rare to begin with, so how many years can you last? The old spirit eater beast's thought process was very clear and logical. Lin Yi nodded. He had already thought about this question and had already formulated a plan. Seeing as the golden cores and nascent souls of the human race and the inner cores of spirit beasts can all be used to nourish the marrow of the spirit vein, then the inner cores of sea beasts should also be usable, right? Chapter 55-76. You don't have to worry about that. I'll be in charge of this. As long as you think it's feasible, then we'll discuss in this direction. What do you think? Lin Yi wasn't being stubborn. After all, this was something that both sides could benefit from. In the endless ocean, no one knew how many sea beasts there were. In the shallow waters, there were mostly foundation establishment stage sea beasts. Once they ventured out a little, golden core stage sea beasts would be more active. As long as the target was a golden core stage sea beast, it wouldn't be difficult for 4 big and 10 small nascent soul experts to form a team to hunt them. There had never been such an opportunity for cooperation before. Asking these high and mighty nascent soul old monsters to team up to hunt golden core stage sea beasts. They really couldn't afford to lose face, so the inner cores of sea beasts had always been a bit scarce. If they really came to an agreement, Lin Yi believed that at least golden core stage sea beast inner cores wouldn't be a problem. The old spirit eater nodded, then scratched its claws and calculated silently. After a while, it said, "How about this? 1 golden core stage sea beast inner core will be exchanged for 10 spots and 10 days of mining time. According to the upper limit you said, 200 people in half a year, that would be, how many was it? I just calculated it. Wait, 10 for 1 inner core, 200 is 20? Lin Yi was speechless. This old spirit eater had lived for so many years, but it seemed that it really hadn't learned how to calculate properly. Such a simple mathematical problem, its claws didn't seem to be enough. After waiting for a few minutes, Lin Yi was already speechless. He couldn't help but remind it, 360 golden core stage sea beast inner cores. 360 golden core stage sea beast inner cores? The old spirit eater's small eyes clearly showed some distrust. It seemed that the cunning image of humans was deeply ingrained in its heart. Fortunately, with Lin Yi's reminder, it was a lot easier to verify. After a while, the old spirit eater nodded happily. That's right, 360 golden core stage sea beast inner cores. As long as we have this amount of inner cores, we'll open half a year for you humans to come in and mine spirit jade. Lin Yi wiped his cold sweat and continued to ask, then how many golden core stage sea beast inner cores can a nascent soul stage sea beast inner core? The old spirit devouring beast didn't continue to struggle with its claws. After all, this was a relatively simple problem, and it immediately replied, let's go with a ratio of 1 to 5. 1 nascent soul stage sea beast core can be used as 5 golden core stage sea beast cores, and if all of them are nascent soul stage sea beast cores. Seeing the old spirit eater scratching its claws again, Lin Yi quickly said, golden core, it is 72 to be, right? That's right. It seemed that Lin Yi hadn't lied before and had won the old spirit eater's trust. This time, it didn't check its own calculations and immediately agreed with Lin Yi's answer. 360 golden core stage sea beast inner cores, or 72 nascent soul stage sea beast inner cores. This is indeed a huge fortune, but compared to the number of spots to mine the spirit jade immortal vein, it should be all right. Lin Yi muttered to himself. He was already thinking about how to organize this hunt after the Azure Cloud sect became the leader of the 4 great sections. The old spirit eater seemed to be very happy after obtaining this number. It also understood that the spirit jade immortal vein was very large, and there were many rich, poor, and even useless veins. As long as it wasn't a nascent soul stage human who came to mine, Even a golden core stage cultivator wouldn't be able to mine it very quickly. The amount of spirit jade that 200 people could consume in half a year definitely couldn't compare to the amount of nourishment from so many sea beast inner cores. In other words, this business was profitable. Also, with Lin Yi as the middleman, the method of collecting these sea beast inner cores wouldn't expose the spirit eater. As for the essence of the spirit vein, it was so deep underground that no one would dig it without knowing the truth. Lin Yi also mentioned the method of exchanging the sea beast inner cores. Can you set up an external interface for this formation? As long as you put in the sea beast inner cores, you can teleport the same amount of people in? No problem. We just need to make some slight adjustments. The old spirit eater said without hesitation. It had already thought about it. Now that it said it through Lin Yi's mouth, it wouldn't arouse the suspicion of the human race. Lin Yi nodded. That's for the best. I'll tell them after we go out that I found a hidden loophole in the formation. As long as we use the sea beast inner cores, we can teleport people in. Although there's still a time limit and the number of people, it's clearly much better than now. I'm sure they'll be very interested after hearing about it. That's for the best. If that's the case, our Spirit Eater Beast clan doesn't need to take the risk to hunt you humans. We can just rest and recuperate here. Maybe we can even produce more offspring. You'll become the benefactor of our Spirit Eater Beast clan. The old Spirit Eater said happily. Even the Spirit Eater Beast next to it didn't have the hostility it had towards Lin Yi after listening for a long time. Although Lin Yi had killed 3 Spirit Eater Beasts, as the old Spirit Eater Beast had said, it was a very sacred thing to contribute to the survival of the Spirit Eater Beast clan. Although the 3 Spirit Eater Beasts were killed by Lin Yi, it also allowed Lin Yi to appear here and reach an agreement that was very beneficial to the reproduction of the Spirit Eater Beast clan. Their sacrifice became meaningful. Then it settled. Go and make the slight adjustments to the formation first, then give me the external interface. After I go out, I can also show it to them while convincing them.
This will make it easier for them to believe me.
Lin Yi thought that it was time for him to go out as soon as possible. He didn't know if Bing Wuqing was still waiting for him, so he urged the old Spirit Eater Beast to hurry up. Go and do it, and take our guests back to the surface. The old Spirit Eater didn't want to waste time, either. He immediately ordered the only surviving member of his clan to do the job and take Lin Yi away. The agreement had been reached, but the super alchemic firebomb in Lin Yi's hand was still there. The faint power it exuded made the old Spirit Eater Beast panic. It was best to send Lin Yi away as soon as possible, lest he accidentally destroyed the spirit vein essence. If that happened, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. Chapter 5577. After all, this alchemic firebomb was just a scare tactic. It didn't have much power, so it was easy to cancel it. The old Spirit Eater and the little Spirit Eater were visibly more relaxed. It seemed that the super alchemic firebomb was a great deterrent to them. Then I'll take my leave. If there's a chance, I'll come visit the old clan leader again. Lin Yi casually cupped his hands at the old Spirit Eater and transformed into his primordial spirit form. He used Pursuing Shadow and attached himself to the little Spirit Eater. The little Spirit Eater screeched at the old Spirit Eater, then turned around and scurried up, quickly disappearing into the rock stratum above. Without this Spirit Eater, it wasn't that Lin Yi couldn't go back in his primordial spirit form, but it was hard to say how long it would take. After a while, the little Spirit Eater brought Lin Yi back to the tunnel above ground. It handed Lin Yi a small triangular flag the size of half a palm, then turned around and left. Although Lin Yi was the benefactor of the Spirit Eater clan, he had killed 3 Spirit Eater beasts, so he was also the little Spirit Eater's enemy. The little Spirit Eater knew that it shouldn't continue to hate Lin Yi, but it was impossible for it to be nice to Lin Yi right away. Lin Yi didn't mind. He looked at the triangular flag and knew that it was the key used to exchange the sea beast's core for a teleportation slot. It could be activated after injecting vital chi into it. Of course, the little Spirit Eater hadn't finished adjusting the formation, so there was no point in activating it. He put it in his pocket. It was such a small flag, so there was no need to put it in the space of the jade pendant. He had to take it out later anyway, so it didn't take up much space in his pocket. The tunnels here were all the same. Lin Yi didn't know if the little spirit eater was taking revenge on him. The place he was sent to was obviously not the place he had left. He couldn't even identify the direction, and he didn't know where Bing Wuching was. Forget it, I'll look for Bing Wuching first. Anyway, the spirit eater beasts won't attack again, so there's no danger here. If I really can't find her, I'll just go out first. 10 days are almost up, and I'll be able to see her soon after I go out. After Lin Yi made up his mind, he maintained his primordial spirit state and flew out with a whoosh. The feeling of flying was very good. Anyway, there was nothing urgent, so it didn't matter if it was fun. After searching for half a day, Lin Yi did not find Bing Wuching, nor did he find any of the other 10 youngsters. The spirit jade immortal vein was indeed huge. Along the way, Lin Yi collected a lot of useless jade that was piled up on the ground. He had earned about 300,000 yuan. Since he had nothing to do, it was a good way to collect useless jade. He reckoned that the little spirit-eating beast had already fine-tuned the formation. Lin Yi did not plan to continue searching for Bing Wuching. He took out the void bag that he had prepared beforehand and filled it with spiritual jades. He activated the teleportation function and returned to Ruin Town. Another one. It's Lin Yi from the Blue Cloud sect. After nearly 10 days, after the spectators dispersed, a small half of them gathered on the last day. When they saw Lin Yi coming out, someone shouted. The nascent soul realm cultivators in the great perfection of the 4 great sects and families were not here. After all, they could not wait here for 10 days. They would only come back to host the verification of the competition when the time was almost up. Lin Yi looked up and saw that the people who came out earlier had not left. They were all sitting on the platform and cultivating. On the side were Ling Tianyu, Jin Weifeng, and Yi Qingcheng, whom Lin Yi had sent out first. Yi Tongxian from Yiling's sect had also come out early. Lin Yi did not meet him before, so he was not killed by the spirit eater beast. He did not know why he came out earlier. As expected, Bing Wuching hadn't come out yet. It seemed like she was still waiting for Lin Yi. She would probably be automatically teleported out when the 10 days were up. The invincible primeval race hadn't come out either, and neither had the 2 old men from the Chu family. The nascent soul realm cultivators from the other clans hadn't come out either. Seeing Lin Yi come out, Jin Weifeng was the first to stand up and say with a smile, "Martial granduncle, you've finally come out. This disciple is getting impatient from waiting." Ling Tianyu also came over. Smiling, he patted Jin Weifeng's shoulder and said, "Is there anyone who is impatient waiting for your martial granduncle? You don't want to live anymore, do you?" Master Lin, Yi Qingcheng and Yi Qingcheng from the Yiling sect were much more restrained. They cupped their hands respectfully and stood to the side. Lin Yi smiled and greeted them one by one. He didn't lose many people on his side, so he was naturally in a good mood. The great elder of the ruins town came over. Seeing Lin Yi come out, he looked a little unhappy and muttered in a low voice, "There are only 10 days in a year, but these people have come out one by one. Could it be that the spiritual jades in the void bag can't hold them?" Of course, the void bag couldn't hold the spiritual jades. This was obviously a mockery of Lin Yi and the others. However, Lin Yi didn't bother to pay attention to him. Normally speaking, these 10 days should be fully utilized. After all, most of the spiritual jades in the small ancient underworld were produced in these 10 days. Let's wait together. The time is almost up. The rest of the people should come out soon, said Lin Yi. He asked everyone to sit down cross-legged and wait. The others had been waiting for several days. Of course, they didn't mind waiting for another half a day or a day. So, they all sat beside Lin Yi. They didn't practice, but just chatted casually. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, the great elder of the ruins town didn't say anything. He turned around and sat down on a chair beside him. He would wait for the 4 great nascent soul realm cultivators to come out. When the 10 days were about to end, the 4 great experts came out in advance. When Shengguan Qingyun saw Lin Yi, she came over with a smile and sat cross-legged beside Lin Yi. She didn't put on any airs and chatted with everyone. This made Yi Qingcheng and the others who didn't know the truth feel flattered. They felt that Shengguan Qingyan was really approachable. After a while, the 10 days were up. The few people who didn't come out appeared on the stage one by one. When Bing Wuqing saw Lin Yi, a rare smile appeared on her cold face. However, there were many people around Lin Yi, so she didn't come over. She just exchanged glances with Lin Yi and nodded to each other gently as a greeting. The onlookers and the 10 young people all returned to their own places. Seeing that the 20 people who went in had obviously come out less, the disciples of the sects who had fewer people looked a little gloomy. Chapter 55-78. The everyday and everyday sect was more miserable. 2 of them didn't come out, and one of them was a nascent soul stage Grand Elder. This was a great loss. As for Lin Yi's side, only the Soaring Heaven sect lost a gold core perfected peak. The others were all unscathed. This was a great fortune in misfortune. This time, the mining of the Spirit Jade was a failure. Not only did 5 masters fall, but many people left the Spirit Jade immortal vein early. They wasted the annual mining opportunity. They really didn't care about the big picture. The great elder of the ruins town said coldly. Although he didn't mention names, everyone knew who he was talking about. Not to mention, he kept glancing at Lin Yi's side. Lin Yi didn't argue, only looking at the elder with a smile that wasn't quite a smile. He let him say what he wanted. After all, he'd know who was wasting time when he took out the spirit jades from the void bag. As for the agreement with the old spirit eater, Lin Yi didn't plan to say it immediately. No matter what, he had to wait until the Jadian sect became the head of the 4 great sections. Then he could carry it out legitimately. At the same time, he could build up the prestige of the Jadian sect, which had just become the head of the 4 great sections. If he said it now, it would only benefit the Qinkuan sect. If Lin Yi didn't say it, the others wouldn't say it. The great elder also knew when to stop. After all, Lin Yi was mysterious and unfathomable. He couldn't provoke him. It didn't matter if he provoked Lin Yi a little. If he really angered Lin Yi, the Qinkuan sect wouldn't be able to protect him. Next, we will check the Mind Spirit Jades to determine the score of the first round of the ranking competition. The Grand Elder of the ruined town picked up the 5 void bags expressionlessly and handed them over to someone to open. These were the void bags of the 5 fallen cultivators. When the time was up, the void bags returned to the Grand Elder. There are 2,373 spiritual jades in the 2 void bags of the everyday and everyday sect, 1,037 spiritual jades in the void bag of the Okuda clan, 1,037 spiritual jades in the void bag of the evil warding sect, 912 spiritual jades in the void bag of the rising heaven sect, and 765 spiritual jades in the void bag of the rising heaven sect. In the small Jianghu of ancient times, this amount of spiritual jades was considered a considerable amount of wealth. Unfortunately, under the premise that 5 experts had exchanged their lives for it, it was really not worth mentioning. Compared to the 10 days of mining, this number was far from being a lot. It should be, because the time of death was relatively early. According to the rules, if someone dies during the mining process, the limit of 500 spiritual jades will be added to the sect as compensation. The Grand Elder of the ruined town looked at the temporary ranking and continued. Therefore, the everyday and everyday sect is temporarily ranked first with 3,373 spiritual jades. Okuda clan, please hand over the other void bag. The Grand Elder of the nascent soul stage of the Okuda clan didn't look good. Although the everyday and everyday sect was already the worst, the Okuda clan didn't have much of an advantage in the first round of the competition. After the person in charge of opening the void bags received the second void bag from the Okuda clan, he quickly opened it and counted the spiritual jades in it. The real-time ranking immediately changed. The Okuda clan, who was originally in second place, was now ahead of the everyday and everyday sect by a large margin. In the second void bag of the Okuda clan, there are 10,322 spiritual jades, a total of 11,859 spiritual jades. They are temporarily ranked first. The Grand Elder of the ruined town looked slightly better. The Okuda clan was under the Chinkuan sect. Although one of their members died, the result wasn't too bad. In previous years, these spiritual jades were considered to be above average. The Tribulation Crossing sage also nodded slightly. Compared to the Five Elements sect, the loss of the Chinkuan sect was still acceptable. The only loss for the Okuda clan wasn't too bad. As for the head of the Five Elements sect, Ma Zedon's face was really gloomy. Originally, the Five Elements sect had 3 sects in the 10 small sects: the Everyday and Everyday sect, the Evil Warding sect, and the Wind Warding sect. In the end, the Wind Warding sect was directly eliminated from the 10 small sections. This time, the Everyday and Everyday sect was completely wiped out. Out of more than 3,000 spiritual jades, it would be good if they could get 20 to 30% of it. The Evil Warding sect was also in the same boat. After the death of a gold core perfected realm cultivator, it was almost impossible for them to get more spiritual jades. Speaking of which, a total of 5 people died. 3 of them were from the Five Elements sect. This time, there were only 4 people from the Five Elements sect. This was really bad luck. It would be strange if Ma Zedon was happy about it. Hand over the void bag of the Evil Warding sect. The Grand Elder of the ruined town calculated the number of sects that had lost a member first. Therefore, Zhao Dan was already prepared. When the Grand Elder of the ruined town said that, he immediately handed over the void bag. To be honest, Zhao Dan didn't feel sad. This time, the gold core perfected realm cultivator who died was originally from Enchanting's faction. Although after Enchanting was killed by Lin Yi, this gold core perfected realm cultivator decided to join Zhao Dan's faction. However, Zhao Dan knew that this person wasn't sincere. This kind of person's death was really not a pity. The only pity was that he died too early. The Evil Warding sect has a total of 9,734 spiritual jades. They are currently ranked second. The Grand Elder of the ruined town didn't report the exact number of spiritual jades Zhao Dan had obtained. He only reported the total number of spiritual jades Zhao Dan had obtained. Ma Zedon's expression became a little better. Zhao Tong had worked hard. Although he had lost a disciple, compared to those disciples from the Shangguan clan, he shouldn't be any weaker, maybe even stronger. Ma Zedon's expression became slightly better. Next, the nascent soul cultivator from the Soaring Heavens sect gave Lin Yi a void bag. Lin Yi hadn't met him before, so he didn't give him any spiritual jades. All the spiritual jades in the void bag were obtained by the nascent soul cultivator himself. He was teleported out at the last moment, so Lin Yi didn't have the chance to give him more spiritual jades. The Soaring Heavens sect wouldn't be at the bottom anyway. In the later stages of the competition, Lin Yi just needed to help them get as many points as possible. In the end, the Soaring Heavens sect's spiritual jades barely reached 8,000 spiritual jades. With the Shangguan clan's teleportation ranking, it was already a great achievement. Looking at the spiritual jades in the Soaring Heavens sect's spiritual jades, Ma Zedon finally let out a sigh of relief. At least he felt a little happier. When he was unlucky, what could make him feel better than seeing someone else being unlucky as well? Chapter 55-79. Yin Yun Sect, a total of 20,714 pieces of spiritual jades, ranked first for now. The Great Elder of Ruins Town revealed a rare smile. As a member of the Chinkuan sect, he was, of course, very happy to see such a performance from the Chinkuan sect. Snow Sword Sect, a total of 28,526 pieces of spiritual jades, ranked first, surpassing Yin Yun Sect. This time, the Great Elder of Ruins Town was very happy. Although the Snow Sword Sect was also under the Chinkuan sect, they were very close to Lin Yi. Especially after Yu Taizong and the others died, the Chinkuan sect felt that the Snow Sword Sect was getting out of control. Therefore, when he saw the number of spiritual jades from the Snow Sword Sect, he was more surprised than happy. Looks like the Snow Sword Sect will take first place this time. This number has never appeared before. It's definitely a record, Sage Du Jie said with a smile. Although the Snow Sword sect and the Qianquan sect were in a state of separation, they were still under the Qianquan sect after all. With this title, the glory of the Snow Sword sect was the glory of the Qianquan sect. Ma Zedong snorted and did not say anything. Qi Dalai only smiled. Currently, Yiling's sect was the only sect in the Awakening Heaven sect. However, Yi Qingqing from Yiling's sect had left long ago. Yi Tongxian was not too late either. Naturally, Qi Dalai did not hold much hope. Only Shangguan Qingyan snorted and said, "What? Just because your Qianquan sect can teleport to the rich vein area, does that mean you will definitely win? You don't even need to check the rest, do you? Haha, does the Shangguan family head think that there is another sect that can surpass the Snow Sword sect?" Sage Du Jie chuckled. He was afraid of Lin Yi, but no matter how powerful Lin Yi was, it was impossible for him to come out early and produce a large amount of spiritual jades, right? They had to be mined, and they had to be mined from the rich vein area right from the start. They had to not waste any time. Whether there is or not, we will know after we check, Shangguan Qingyan said with an unfriendly expression. In fact, he wasn't very confident either. The location where the Shangguan clan teleported to wasn't a good location to begin with. If they wanted to find the rich vein, they would have to waste a lot of time. Not to mention, there would be a lot of people who would come out in advance, including Lin Yi. To be honest, Shangguan Qingyun had the same opinion as the others. He felt that it would be great if the few sects under the Shangguan clan could surpass those dead sections. This could be considered a mid-tier ranking, and it should be enough. However, when he saw the tribulation transcending sage's expression, Shangguan Qingyun felt extremely uncomfortable. The Leaf Spirit sect has mined a total of 21,892 pieces of spiritual jade, temporarily ranked second. The Great Elder of Ruins Town could hardly believe his own eyes. It was normal for the Snow Sword faction to mine a lot of spirit jades. After all, they were in the rich vein area when they entered. Moreover, Bing Wuqing and Hong Qingyuan were teleported out after the time was up. They were the epitome of diligence. What about the Leaf Spirit sect? When did Yi Qingqing come out? Is there a full day? This was no different from a direct death, right? The minimum amount of spiritual jade that could be used to activate the void bag was 500 spiritual jades. Therefore, no one had ever doubted how many spiritual jades Yi Qingqing had. As for Yi Tongxian, he came out after 6 or 7 days. How did he get over 21,000 spiritual jades? Could it be that he happened to come across a spiritual jade mountain that had been mined? The audience was in an uproar. No one had expected such an outcome. After Qi Dalai recovered from the shock, he smiled happily. No matter how the Leaf Spirit sect did it, they were the only seedlings of the Enlightened Heavens sect among the top 10. Being able to get second place was a very honorable thing. The tribulation transcending sage said to the Great Elder of Ruins Town expressionlessly, "Continue." After all, the Leaf Spirit sect was a branch of the Enlightened Heavens sect, and it was the only branch. If they continued to fight, the Enlightened Heavens sect would definitely lose face. In the past, it wouldn't matter, but now, with the rise of the Shangguan clan and the strange and unpredictable Blue Cloud sect, the tribulation transcending sage wanted to rope in the Enlightened Heavens sect, a relatively neutral sect. Therefore, he didn't want any unnecessary situations to happen. Besides, the sudden movement of the Leaf Spirit sect made the tribulation transcending sage feel uneasy. Could it be that the other sects of the Shangguan clan were acting the same way as the Leaf Spirit sect? It couldn't be that strange, right? Since his boss had spoken, the Great Elder of Ruins Town could only do as he was told. He immediately asked someone to open the void bag of the Chu family. Lin Yi wasn't able to find the 2 disciples from the Chu family. Furthermore, this was the first time that the Chu family had entered the top 10, so no one had high expectations for them, including Lin Yi himself. However, the final result shocked everyone. The 2 disciples from the Chu family had obtained a total of 20,715 spiritual jades, 1 piece more than the Yinyun sect. They had even replaced the Yinyun sect as the temporary 3rd place. Let alone the disciples from the Yinyun sect, Even the tribulation transcending sage almost vomited blood. Was this done on purpose? How could there be such a coincidence? Lin Yi also looked at the two disciples from the Chu family in amazement. These two old men's mining abilities were off the charts. They were actually able to obtain such an amazing result in such a difficult situation. This was truly impressive. If the Leaf Spirit sect and the Chu family were already amazing, then the Thousand Blades sect's result was truly shocking. Ling Tianyu was taken care of by Lin Yi, but the invincible ancient immemorial didn't encounter Lin Yi. He completely mined by himself. However, the invincible ancient immemorial was, after all, a veteran nascent soul stage cultivator, and he was also very experienced in mining spiritual jades. However, the final sum of the two disciples exceeded 30,000 spiritual jades, which immediately caused an uproar. The record that the Snow Sword sect had just broken was once again broken by the Thousand Blades sect. Furthermore, one of them, Ling Tianyu, had only stayed inside for 1 day. Now, no one would think that they were wasting their precious time by coming out first. They would only think that they were wasting their resources. If they could obtain so many spiritual jades in 1 day, wouldn't it be at least 7 or 8 times more in 10 days? How many spiritual jades would that be? How many more spiritual jades would the people of the ancient Jianghu get? After the shock, everyone couldn't help but start discussing. The Thousand Blades sect's performance in the top 10 had already been very amazing. They didn't expect that it would be the same in the top 10. Could it be that this sect with only 2 disciples was really going to soar into the sky in one go? Cheating. Ling Tianyu must have cheated. Wei Yidao suddenly jumped out and roared hysterically. Wei Tianba was dead, and the Tyrant's Blade sect didn't manage to enter the top 10. His hatred for Ling Tianyu had almost driven him crazy. Chapter 5580. The Great Elder of Ruins Town was speechless at Wei Yidao. Why was it this idiot again? Although Wei Yidao was a disciple of Qiankuan sect, the Great Elder felt that Ling Tianyu's biggest failure was not killing him. Whether he cheated or not. What did it have to do with you? Ling Tianyu didn't mind spiritual jades, but you Wei Yidao did? Did you see it with your own eyes whether it was cheating or not? Even if it was cheating, as long as you took out 30,000 spiritual jades to cheat, this daddy would welcome it. As if Ling Tianyu had sensed the Great Elder's thoughts, Ling Tianyu directly sneered and said, I did cheat. I took out 30,000 spiritual jades to cheat. This young master has a lot of spiritual jades. Come over, I promise I won't smash you to death with spiritual jades. The audience immediately burst into laughter. Everyone knew that Ling Tianyu was being sarcastic. Who the hell would take out 30,000 spiritual jades to cheat? How retarded would one have to be to do something like that? Well, no matter how retarded one was, they wouldn't do such a thing. Because only a smart person like Lin Yi would do such a thing. However, at this moment, Lin Yi was looking at the sky at a 45-degree angle, silently reflecting in his heart. He had collected more than 1 million spiritual jades, but he only took out a few tens of thousands. Was it not kind enough? The Great Elder of Ruins Town glanced at Taoist Transcending Tribulation. Seeing that Taoist Transcending Tribulation didn't say anything, he turned to Wei Yidao and reprimanded. Wei Yidao, your Tyrant Blade School isn't one of the 4 big and 10 small ones. You have no right to speak here. Leave immediately, or your Tyrant Blade School will be expelled from Ruins Town. Being expelled from Ruins Town meant that the Tyrant Blade School wouldn't be allowed to participate in the next Immemorial Grand Meeting. They could only re-enter after the next one. The Great Elder of Ruins Town was extremely fed up with Wei Yidao, which was why he gave such a warning. Wei Yidao's face alternated between green, white, and red. The grievance in his heart was indescribable. However, the people of the Tyrant Saber School did not dare to offend the Great Elder of Ruin Town. They hurriedly pulled Wei Yidao, who was unwilling to give up, back, and this episode officially came to an end. Although no one believed that the Thousand Blades faction had used their own spiritual jades to cheat, let alone 30,000, they might not even be able to take out 3,000 spiritual jades. However, This matter still caused the crowd to discuss endlessly, and they came up with all sorts of even more outrageous conclusions. However, with a single sentence from the great elder of Ruins Town, this noisy situation immediately disappeared without a trace. It was as if everyone had lost the ability to speak in an instant. The Clear Sky sect has a total of more than 40,000 spirit jades. The great elder of Ruins Town didn't even want to say the exact number, because it was meaningless. No sect had ever achieved 40,000 spirit jades before. Of course, no sect had ever achieved 30,000 spirit jades, and it was naturally impossible for them to achieve 40,000 spirit jades. However, if it was 30,000 spirit jades, they could at least imagine and look forward to it. As for 40,000 spirit jades, no one had the guts to even think about it. But the Clear Sky sect had achieved it directly. The whole audience was silent. This was no longer something that could be described as shock. Everyone looked at Lin Yi and Jin Weifeng in a daze, including Shengguan Qingyun, who was very confident in Lin Yi. Only those who had received spiritual jades from Lin Yi didn't find it strange. Since Lin Yi could give them tens of thousands of spiritual jades, wasn't it normal for him to keep 20 or 30,000 for himself? So to say, our Clear Sky sect is the champion of this event? 10 points, not bad. When the whole audience was silent, Lin Yi suddenly said with a light smile. Everyone was speechless. 10 points was already the highest score, and it was not bad? That was very good. What should they do? Did they even put very good in their eyes? Haha, our Thousand Blades faction is second, with 9 points, not bad. Ling Tianyu also joined in the fun and said with a laugh. The whole audience despised this pretentious guy. There were only 2 of you and 9 points was not bad? Was it super good? You were already second. What else did you want? Bing Wuqing twitched the corner of her mouth and said stiffly, third, 8 points, not bad. Well, for the Snow Sword faction, this result could only be said to be not bad. Bing Wuqing was a practical person. In fact, everyone was too tired to complain in their hearts. You can talk all you want, do you really need to maintain the formation? Yiling faction was 4th, with 7 points, and the Chu family was 5th, with 6 points. Not bad. Sage Du Jie and Ma Zaidan's faces were livid. When the rankings were all out, they realized that the Shengguan family was simply going against the natural order. Apart from the Rising Sky sect, who had lost 1 disciple, and finally surpassed the even more unlucky Everyday sect, getting 2 points from the bottom, the Clear Sky sect and the Thousand Blades faction took the 1st and 2nd places. Although the 3rd and 4th places were from the Qianquan sect and the Enlightening Sky sect, everyone knew that they were close to the Clear Sky sect's Lin Yi. Being close to the Clear Sky sect was equivalent to being close to the Shengguan family. Damn it, the 5th place was also from the Shengguan family, the newly promoted 10 Minor Chu family. The top 5 contestants of the first event were either directly from the Shengguan clan, or they were indirectly related to the Shengguan clan. Dao Master Crossing Tribulation and Ma Zaidan exchanged a glance. From the look in each other's eyes, they could tell that they were thinking the same thing. Join forces. They had to join forces. Otherwise, the rise of the Shengguan family would be unstoppable, and the unlucky ones would definitely be either of them, or none of them. Lin Yi glanced at them, seemingly intentionally or unintentionally, and saw the silent exchange between the two. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. It was a little too late to think of joining forces now. Besides, was it really good to treat the Shengguan family as an opponent? The one that was going to rise was the Shengguan family, but the one that was going to soar was the Clear Sky sect. After looking away, Lin Yi had a faint smile on his face as he celebrated with the others. Although it was expected, they had still managed to take the top 5 spots, so it would be weird if they weren't happy at all. Besides, looking at Sage Du Jie, Ma Zaidan, and Wei Yidao's depressed expressions, Lin Yi's mood was getting better and better. Maybe they should do the same thing in the next category? Let everyone continue to watch them being unhappy so happily? Now, let's talk about the second category of the top 10 minor competition. Everyone quiet down. The great elder of Ruins Town was not happy with the Shengguan family's joyful expressions, So he quickly interrupted their celebration with a cold voice. The people on and off the stage slowly quieted down, and they all looked at the Great Elder. Chapter 5581. The Grand Elder of the ruined town scanned the stage and the audience. He was satisfied with the effect of his words, so he continued, "The second round of the competition is to hunt for the inner cores of sea beasts. Everyone knows that the inner cores of sea beasts are the main ingredients for alchemy. They can even be said to be strategic resources. In terms of importance, they are no less important than mining spiritual jades." Before he finished speaking, people below the stage had already begun to whisper. Yes, sea beast cores were important resources, everyone knew this, but at the same time, hunting sea beast cores was also a very dangerous thing. Although most of the sea beasts in the coastal waters were at the Foundation establishment stage, there was almost no risk for Golden Core or Nascent Soul stage masters to hunt them, but if too many sea beasts were hunted, the smell of blood left behind by the sea beasts after their deaths would attract powerful sea beasts from the deep sea, and not just one or two of them would appear. It was like a school of sharks in the secular world, or even more serious, a large group of sea beasts would directly riot. "Quiet!" The Grand Elder of Ruins Town shouted, obviously very dissatisfied with the chaos below the stage. After the voices below the stage stopped, he said expressionlessly, "The rules for hunting sea beast cores are very simple. The 10 small ones will still send out 2 people each, and the sea beast cores hunted will be calculated according to their level. For the sea beast cores of the Foundation establishment stage, the early and middle stage will be 1 point, the late stage will be 2 points, the peak stage will be 3 points, the early golden core stage will be 10 points, the middle stage will be 15 points, the late stage will be 20 points, the peak stage will be 25 points, and the nascent soul stage will be 10 times the points of the golden core stage." This method of calculating points was not bad. At least it was much clearer than the old Spirit Eater's vague golden core stage and nascent soul stage. Linny now thought about the old Spirit Eater's nascent soul stage and golden core stage sea beast cores ratio of 1 to 5, and it was really arbitrary. The one with the highest total points will get 10 points for the sect ranking and so on, and the points will be added to the first competition. When the Grand Elder said this, he thought of the first round of rankings and suddenly felt a little awkward, so he curled his lips and omitted the rest of the words. If each family only sends out 2, it shouldn't be a big problem, right? As long as they don't go to the deep sea, they won't provoke 2 powerful sea beasts. The Grand Elder stopped talking, and the audience began to discuss again. If there are only 20 people in total, it won't cause a riot. Unless these 20 people start a massacre and turn the coastal waters into a sea of blood, then those powerful sea beasts will be attracted. Don't be silly. These 20 people are definitely the strongest of the 10 small ones. How can they hunt 1 or 2 Foundation establishment sea beasts in the coastal waters? How can they hunt 1 or 2 in the coastal waters? They should at least go deeper to hunt 1. For the experts participating in the competition, it's not a problem for them to kill golden core stage sea beasts in groups of 2. Moreover, there aren't many of them, so they won't disturb the sea beasts and scare them into hiding. If we really startle those powerful sea beasts, who knows who will be the one scaring the other? For a moment, there were all sorts of comments below the stage. Moreover, after a few sentences, the topic seemed to have drifted away. However, this time, the Great Elder of Ruins Town did not intend to stop them. After all, what needed to be said had been said. Now it was time for 10 Little to digest the information. "Uncle Master, why don't you let me follow you on this sea beast hunt?" Jean Weifeng moved closer to Lin Yi and smiled brightly. It was obvious that he wanted to continue following Lin Yi. Lin Yi laughed and said, "No problem. You really need to train more. This is also a rare opportunity." Jean Weifeng was overjoyed. After thanking him with a smile, he turned around to report to Xianijia. The second segment of the competition came at the right time for Lin Yi. In the future, he would have to use the inner cores of sea beasts to trade for the Spirit Jade Immortal Vein quota with the Spirit-Eating Beast clan, and hunting sea beasts was an unavoidable hurdle for him. This small-scale competition was a good opportunity for him to see how difficult it was to hunt sea beasts. Speaking of which, in this competition, hunting nascent soul realm sea beasts was clearly the best. After all, they could obtain a lot of points. If they wanted to exchange for the quota to mine spiritual jades, golden core realm sea beasts seemed to be more suitable. After all, it was rather dangerous for the people of the immemorial underworld to hunt nascent soul realm sea beasts. Golden core realm sea beasts were much safer and easier. No matter what, he should take this opportunity to hunt all golden core and nascent soul sea beasts. Only after trying would he be able to find the most suitable way to trade. Lin Yi thought about it and turned to look for Bing Wuqing and the others to explain the plan of action for hunting sea beasts. Seeing that it was almost time, the elder of Ruins Town spoke again. Have all the sects finished discussing? The candidates for the second segment of the competition have been decided? Let's go. Basically, the candidates for the 10 small sects were still those who had participated in the spiritual jade mining. However, because of the higher casualty rate in the first segment, those sect leaders did not participate. Instead, they changed to other disciples. For example, Hong Yuanqing of the Snow Sword sect was replaced by Lung Lung, and Yi Qingcheng of the Yiling sect was replaced by Duanmuyu. Of course, these two sects made this exchange mostly to let Lin Yi take care of them. After all, they all knew that there was an ambiguous relationship between Lin Yi and Lung Lung and Duanmuyu. He would never put them in any danger. In terms of safety, these two little golden core beauties were much better than the two sect leaders. 20 small flying spirit beasts landed on the high platform under the command of the Elder of Ruins Town. They were going to hunt sea beasts. Of course, it could not be in the primordial mountains. These flying spirit beasts were to send the participants there. It would be much more convenient for everyone to have a flying spirit beast. The place to hunt sea beasts and obtain their cores is the sea area closest to the primordial mountains. Of course, this sea area is also a part of the primordial endless sea. They are all connected, so don't stray too far from the coastline. Otherwise, if you are attacked by powerful sea beasts, no one can save you. The great Elder of Ruins Town gave a routine warning. In reality, if they really did that, they would only be able to hunt Foundation Establishment stage sea beasts in the coastal waters. Points like 1, 2, 3, and 3 were really not something the elites of the 10 small sects would want. Lin Yi glanced at those small flying spirit beasts. They were flying spirit beasts that were known for their speed. They were similar to the spirit birds on the Heaven Stage Island. They did not have any other special abilities. If they were to carry a load, they could only carry 2 people at most. It was most suitable for one person to ride. Chapter 5582. Yes, Martial Uncle. Disciple will remember. Jin Weifeng hurriedly replied respectfully. However, deep down in his heart, he didn't think much of it. Since he was following Lin Yi, how could there be any danger? After Lin Yi finished speaking, he continued observing those small flying spirit beasts. Of course, he didn't know what Jin Weifeng was thinking. Otherwise, Lin Yi would have seriously taught Jin Weifeng a lesson. In the endless sea, flying spirit beasts were their lifelines, and no amount of attention could be paid to them. Unless Jin Weifeng could fly using his primordial spirit like Lin Yi. Each flying spirit beast is marked with a mark of one of the 10 small sections. Once you find your own flying spirit beast, you can set off. The competition will last for 3 days, and you'll have to come back on your own. If you exceed the time limit, your score won't be counted. Everyone, please pay attention to this. The great Elder of Ruins Town waved his hand, and the second round of the competition officially began. A cold smile emerged on Lin Yi's face. These small flying spirit beasts all looked the same on the surface, but just like how everyone had different heights, short, fat, skinny, strong, weak, and small, ordinary flying spirit beasts were all the same. The few best flying spirit beasts had already been marked with the Qianquan sect and 5 elemental sect symbols. As for the ones from the Shangguan clan, they were all the weakest flying spirit beasts. Although the Qianquan sect and the 5 elements sect didn't do anything to these flying spirit beasts, the best flying spirit beasts were at least 10% stronger than the worst flying spirit beasts. Lin Yi didn't really care about this, but not everyone on Lin Yi's side could protect themselves in the endless sea. Of course, the stronger the flying spirit beasts, the better. In a critical moment, that 10% advantage could save their lives. Therefore, Lin Yi wouldn't allow the Qiankuan sect to do something like this.
Wait.
Why do we need to arrange these flying spirit beasts in advance? Isn't it better for us to choose ourselves? Lin Yi appeared in front of the Great Elder of Ruins Town in a flash and asked calmly. The Great Elder's heart trembled. Facing Lin Yi head-on, he still felt a little weak. He couldn't help but take half a step back. After he came to his senses, he immediately stopped. However, in terms of aura, he was completely suppressed by Lin Yi. This is the rule.
Why?
Although the Great Elder of Ruins Town still pretended to be expressionless and arrogant, his tone completely revealed the anxiety in his heart. Rules are made by people. This rule is obviously not suitable. Lin Yi smiled faintly as he pointed at the ranking on the jade wall and said, "There's already a new ranking. Shouldn't we choose the flying spirit beasts according to this new ranking? If we still insist on the original method, then what's the point of fighting for this ranking?" Well said. I have long thought that this should be done. It's rare for Elder Lin to suggest it. Let's start now. Shangguan Qingyan immediately stood up to support Lin Yi. He originally wanted to call Lin Yi Martial Uncle, but after thinking that it wasn't the right time, he changed it to Elder Lin Yi. The Great Elder of Ruins Town still wanted to argue, but Sage Du Jie said, "Choosing the flying spirit beasts according to the new ranking of the 10 small ones is indeed a fairer method. Let's do it this way." Preparing the flying spirit beasts for one's own sect in advance was something that couldn't be done openly. Sage Du Jie knew that continuing to argue wouldn't do him any good. After all, the 4 big and 10 small ones were no longer the Qiankuan sect's words. There was no value in directly confronting the Shangguan clan and Lin Yi over such a trivial matter. However, since Shangguan Qingyun and Lin Yi took the initiative to speak, Sage Du Jie still had the upper hand. So, he continued to say, "However, in order to make it fairer, I suggest that we choose the flying spirit beasts according to the ranking. This way, the last sect won't even have the chance to choose the flying spirit beasts. What do you all think?" Of course, the 5 elements sect agreed. After all, the last sect was the everyday sect. They had already lost 2 of their experts. If they didn't even have the chance to choose the flying spirit beasts, wouldn't it be very likely that 2 more of their experts would die? As usual, the Enlightening Heavens faction didn't express any opinion. Thus, Sage Du Jie's proposal was passed. Lin Yi didn't really care about it. After all, the top 5 disciples were all on his side. The number of outstanding flying spirit beasts and the weaker ones would be the same, around 5 or 6. In other words, the best flying spirit beasts would be chosen by Lin Yi's group, and the worst would be left at the end. As for the 10 flying spirit beasts in the middle, they were all about the same quality, so there wasn't much to choose from. It seemed like a fair proposal, but in fact, it didn't change much since the decision had been made. Lin Yi, as the top disciple of the Blue Cloud sect, didn't hesitate to pick a flying spirit beast. He tore off the symbol of the Guiding Cloud sect, then turned to Jin Weifeng and said, "Weifeng, you can ride this flying spirit beast." "Thank you, Grand Uncle." Jin Weifeng didn't hesitate. He ran over with a smile and jumped onto the flying spirit beast. The face of Zhou Baixiang of the Guiding Cloud sect was as dark as ink. This was originally his flying spirit beast, and it was the best among the 20 flying spirit beasts. Now, it had become the mount of that little guy from the Blue Cloud sect. What made Zhou Baixiang's face even darker was that the flying spirit beast of the Snow Sword sect, which was also the one chosen by Lin Yi, had given the other flying spirit beast of the Guiding Cloud sect to Lung Lung of the Snow Sword sect. The Thousand Blade sect had chosen a flying spirit beast with a symbol of the Okuda clan. The Leaf Spirit sect, which was 4th, had also chosen a flying spirit beast with the symbol of the Okuda clan, which was given to Duanmuyu by Lin Yi. After the Chu clan was done choosing, there were no more high-grade flying spirit beasts left. The best ones left were only middle-grade flying spirit beasts. After the remaining 5 clans had chosen one spirit beast each, it was Blue Cloud Sec's turn to choose again. The last 5 middle-grade flying spirit beasts were divided among themselves. The remaining 5 low-grade flying spirit beasts didn't need to be chosen anymore. After the selection was over, Lin Yi exchanged his middle-grade flying spirit beast with the Soaring Sky Sect. After all, the Soaring Sky Sect's ranking was too low. They only had 1 middle grade and 1 low grade flying spirit beast, which was too disadvantageous for them. 2 middle grade flying spirit beasts were just SOSO. As for Lin Yi himself, he could fly in his primordial spirit state anyway. Having a low grade flying spirit beast was enough. The 20 flying spirit beasts carried the top experts of the 10 clans and soared into the sky at the same time. They flew towards the endless sea at the edge of the primordial mountain range. The second round of the competition had officially begun. Chapter 55-83. Cold Lung and Duanmuyu both wanted to follow Lin Yi, but Lin Yi had the big third wheel, Jin Weifeng. Plus, they were too embarrassed to fight to team up with Lin Yi. In the end, they could only follow Bing Wuqing and Yi Tongxian. Uncle Master, did your disciple get in trouble? Jin Weifeng flew to Lin Yi's side after everyone had left, popping his head out to ask. Lin Yi laughed and said, "If you think you're in the way, you can jump down and fish the sea beasts yourself." Jin Weifeng shrunk his neck and said with a smile, "I'm still very sensible. I won't be in the way at all. Forget about fishing for sea beasts. Don't think about those useless things. While we're still near the sea, hurry up and practice killing sea beasts." After Lin Yi said that, he controlled the flying spirit beast to get close to the surface of the sea. With a Frenzy Fire 8 trigram palm, he killed a late-stage Foundation Establishment sea beast underwater. A late-stage Foundation Establishment sea beast's inner core entered the space of the jade pendant smoothly. Looks like I'm still in the way and making Grandmaster unhappy. If I knew this would happen, I would have teamed up with Bing Wuqing and Yi Tongxian. Jin Weifeng muttered in a low voice, not daring to let Lin Yi hear him. Then, he cheered loudly. Grandmaster is too awesome. Hunting sea beasts' inner cores couldn't be easier. After that, he imitated Lin Yi and got the flying spirit beast close to the surface of the sea. He unsheathed his long sword and used a simple vacuum sword wave to cut a Foundation Establishment perfected sea beast underwater into 2. Then he wrapped the inner core with vital energy and put it into his pocket. Not bad. But with your strength, it seems like killing a Foundation Establishment sea beast is too easy. Let's continue deeper into the boundless sea and look for golden core sea beasts. Lin Yi nodded and used another Frenzy Fire 8 trigram palm to harvest a second Foundation Establishment sea beast's inner core. Sea beasts were naturally fond of hunting flying spirit beasts on the surface of the sea, especially flying spirit beasts that were ridden by humans. Therefore, when Lin Yi and Jin Weifeng approached the surface of the sea, they would naturally attract the attention of the sea beasts. Then, the hunters would become the hunted, and they would obediently offer up their inner cores. Jin Weifeng urged the flying spirit beast to keep up with Lin Yi. He grinned and said, "Martial Granduncle, it's really boring to hunt sea beasts at the Foundation Establishment stage. I don't think sea beasts at the Golden Core stage are that much stronger. Why don't we go look for sea beasts at the Nascent Soul stage? The inner core of an early-stage Nascent Soul stage sea beast is worth 100 points. It's enough to match 100 early-stage or mid-stage Foundation Establishment stage sea beasts. Actually, you can go hunt a sea beast at the peak of the Nascent Soul realm. I think you can do it," Lin Yi said without turning his head. Jin Weifeng was pleasantly surprised. "Martial Granduncle, is what you said true? Do you really think this disciple can kill a Nascent Soul realm sea beast? This is great. If he succeeded, he would be an idiot? Martial Granduncle." Lin Yi laughed and no longer paid attention to Jin Weifeng. "I didn't say anything about an idiot. You said it yourself." The two of them flew towards the depths of the endless sea. Very soon, they flew out of the coastal waters and entered the area where there were more Golden Core stage sea beasts. Lin Yi's main purpose this time was to see how difficult it was to hunt sea beasts at the Golden Core stage, or the Nascent Soul stage. Therefore, after he attacked twice, he let Jin Weifeng be the main attacker, so that he could see more clearly. To be able to show off in front of Lin Yi, Jin Weifeng of course couldn't ask for more. Therefore, he attacked with all his might. However, Golden Core stage sea beasts were not so easy to deal with. In terms of strength, Jin Weifeng could still crush any Golden Core stage sea beast. However, Golden Core stage sea beasts were extremely vigilant. After realizing that the two of them were not to be trifled with, they would hide far away. Jin Weifeng could only attack up to a depth of 20 to 30 meters below sea level. Any deeper than that would be useless unless he also went deep into the sea. However, in that case, Golden Core stage sea beasts might be able to crush Jin Weifeng instead. Martial Granduncle, these Golden Core stage sea beasts are really cunning. After another attack failed, Jin Weifeng helplessly turned his head and said to Lin Yi. Lin Yi grunted in response. However, he was thinking that the inner cores of sea beasts were indeed not easy to obtain. It was already so difficult for a nascent soul stage expert to hunt a Golden Core stage sea beast, let alone a nascent soul stage sea beast. If everyone was in such a state, it would not be easy to gather the 360 inner cores of Golden Core stage sea beasts that he had agreed with the old Spirit Eater. Martial Granduncle, why don't I fly a distance away by myself? If I am alone, these cunning Golden Core stage sea beasts might take the initiative to attack me. Jin Weifeng saw that Lin Yi did not have any special ideas, so he tentatively proposed his own idea. Lin Yi was slightly startled when he heard this. However, thinking that there were basically only Golden Core stage sea beasts here, there shouldn't be any nascent soul stage sea beasts. Jin Weifeng's strength was enough to ensure his own safety. Thus, he nodded and said, "All right, be careful. If there are nascent soul stage sea beasts, don't fight them recklessly." In the boundless sea, Lin Yi's divine sense covered a relatively large area. Even from afar, he could see if there were any nascent soul stage sea beasts around Jin Weifeng. Therefore, it was definitely a good thing to let Jin Weifeng train alone. Disciple understands, Martial Granduncle, don't worry. Jin Weifeng agreed and immediately urged the flying spirit beast to fly away excitedly. Lin Yi paid attention to the direction Jin Weifeng was heading. He was not heading towards the depths of the boundless sea, but was flying parallel to the boundary between the coastal and deep sea. Thus, he did not say anything. After Jin Weifeng completely disappeared from his sight, Lin Yi slowly urged the flying spirit beast to slowly fly in that direction. At the same time, his divine sense was closely monitoring Jin Weifeng's movements. Sure enough, as Jin Weifeng expected, when he was alone, the alert Golden Core stage sea beasts relaxed their vigilance, and some of the Golden Core stage sea beasts that were attracted by him began to probe and attack Jin Weifeng. Jin Weifeng seized the opportunity and killed 2 Golden Core stage sea beasts in a short period of time. He easily obtained 30 points. Not bad. It seems that this is a good way to hunt sea beasts. However, it is a bit dangerous. After all, I am alone in this area. Without the strength of a nascent soul stage, it is better not to try it. Lin Yi revealed a smile. No matter what, this was a good way to complete the deal with the old eater. In this area, there was no lack of Golden Core stage sea beasts. As long as the 4 big and 10 small nascent soul stage experts could put down their pride, it would not take too long to collect 360 Golden Core stage sea beasts' inner cores. Chapter 5584. Lin Yi was planning the future development of the ancient underworld in his heart when he suddenly exclaimed. He turned his head to look in the direction of the sea, and his face quickly darkened. Noticing that Jin Weifeng was fine for the time being and that he was able to deal with the Golden Core stage sea beast with ease, Lin Yi no longer hesitated and immediately urged the flying spirit beast to fly in that direction at full speed. At the edge of Lin Yi's divine sense, he happened to find Wan Muyu, who was being chased. At this time, she was not with Yi Taxian, and he did not know what had happened. Fortunately, Duanmuyu's flying spirit beast was better. Although it was not a match for the two people behind her, with the speed of the flying spirit beast, her life was not in danger for the time being. For the first time, Lin Yi felt that a low-level flying spirit beast was really not enough. He had to change to at least a mid-level flying spirit beast later. As Duanmuyu was also flying in the direction of Lin Yi, the distance between the two sides was quickly narrowing. Soon, Lin Yi could see 3 black spots in the distant sky and return to normal in a short period of time. Lin Yi could even see the anxious expression on Duanmuyu's face. Lin Yi. Duanmuyu also saw Lin Yi and immediately cried out in surprise. She originally wanted to fly to the deep sea and then use the golden core stage sea beast in the deep sea to stop the two pursuers behind. Although it was dangerous, it was the only way to escape now. He didn't expect Lin Yi to be here. With Lin Yi's help, the two bastards at the back wouldn't even be able to take one hit. The two people who had been chasing Duanmu naturally saw Lin Yi, but after looking at each other, they did not intend to give up the chase. They just slowed down a little. Lin Yi had already seen that Duanmu was not hurt, and the anger in his heart dissipated a little. Seeing the two people slow down and let Duanmu pass, he blocked in front of him. Are you two from the everyday sect? Why are you chasing after a girl? Lin Yi directed the flying spirit beast to hover in front of Duanmu and asked with a cold expression. If it was in the past, Lin Yi would have fought first, but now, for the sake of future plans, Lin Yi didn't want to kill for no reason, so he gave them a chance to explain. These two people were indeed from the everyday sect. It had to be said that the strength of this sect was still quite good. Although 2 experts died in the first round, this time they still sent out an early Yuanying stage and a peak Jidan stage, but the aura of the early Yuanying stage was not very stable. He should have just broken through in the past 2 days. Lin Yi, right? I know that you're a martial granduncle of the Azure Cloud sect, and there are rumors that you're very powerful, not inferior to a perfected nascent soul cultivator. However, this is a matter between the everyday sect and the leaf spirit sect, so I hope that you won't interfere. The early nascent soul cultivator cupped his fist in a salute and spoke in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. This was also because Lin Yi was still showing the strength of the peak foundation establishment stage. After all, rumors were rumors. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't completely believe it. Hee. You know that I am very strong, but you still dare to bully my Lin Yi's woman in front of me? Are you tired of living? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and said with a faint smile, Don't talk to me about the fight between sects, just tell me what it is for. Duanmu, who was behind Lin Yi, heard Lin Yi say that she was his woman, blushed slightly, but her heart was as sweet as honey. Without waiting for the two guys to speak, she directly took out a sea beast Sniden of the late Jidan stage and said, They are chasing me for this Sniden. We originally found the sea beast of the Jidan stage first. You stole our Sniden, and you still have the face to say that we stole your Sniden? The other cultivator of the peak Jidan stage pointed at Duanmu and shouted loudly. No one knew if he was trying to increase his volume to increase his courage to face Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked back and was also speechless. It was just a Sniden of the late Jidan stage. Was it necessary to chase people like this? Didn't they see that the sea below was already full of Jidan stage sea beasts? But then again, the offshore sea beasts were basically at the foundation stage. It was rare for a sea beast of the Jidan stage to appear. It was indeed easy to cause a fight. But the two people of the everyday sect, even here, could easily hunt the sea beasts of the Jidan stage. If they had time to chase Duanmu, it would be better to hunt here. Lin Yi, don't listen to his nonsense. If the sea beast he saw was his, then wouldn't the entire endless sea belong to the everyday sect? Of course, Duanmu knew that Lin Yi would help him unconditionally, but he still retorted angrily. Lin Yi smiled and comforted him. I know, leave this matter to me. After saying that, Lin Yi's mind moved, and the golden core stage sea beast's core in Duanmu's hand was put into the jade pendant space. With his strength equivalent to the peak of Mystic Ascension middle stage, Using the jade pen space in front of these two guys would definitely not be noticed by them. The two guys of the Everyday and Everyday sect had been staring at the Niden in Duanmuyu's hand, but they didn't expect that the Niden would suddenly disappear into thin air. They were a little dumbfounded. One of them rubbed his eyes hard in disbelief to confirm that the Niden was really gone. Duanmuyu couldn't help but want to laugh when he saw the dumbfounded look of these two guys. There was no need to ask to know that this must be Lin Yi's doing. Duanmuyu had seen the mysterious space before. The Niden that disappeared must have been taken into that space by Lin Yi. Lin Yi pretended to be surprised, and then said lazily, "It's really strange. Why did the Niden suddenly disappear? Now that the thing is gone, why are you still fighting? Hurry up and disperse if you have time. You might as well clean up the gold core stage sea beasts below." The two of them subconsciously looked in the direction that Lin Yi was pointing at, only to realize that they were already at the edge of the coastal sea. Below the sea, there were gold core stage sea beasts, but because there were 4 people and flying spirit beasts in the air, those sea beasts were hiding deep and would not take the initiative to attack. In order to fulfill the agreement with the old spirit eater, Lin Yi had done his best, and he even directly taught these two guys who were a little silly. Chapter 55-85. The early-stage nascent soul cultivator seemed to think that since he had just broken through, he had enough strength to face Lin Yi. After all, rumors were just rumors. The Lin Yi in front of him, no matter how he looked at it, was just a weak chicken with the strength of a foundation establishment perfected. Lin Yi chuckled. He was really fooled by this idiot. However, an idiot who couldn't see the situation clearly could already be considered mentally retarded. Lin Yi just wanted to have a little more strength when hunting the Oris core stage sea beasts, but if they really wanted to court death, Lin Yi couldn't possibly stop them. "Where do you think I have an inner core?" Lin Yi spread out his hands, indicating that he really didn't have an inner core on him. This early-stage nascent soul cultivator saw that Lin Yi was showing some weakness, and immediately became arrogant. He thought that Jadian Sex Lin Yi was really famous. It was really just a rumor. "I see that you have an inner core everywhere. Since you don't want to hand it over, then don't blame me for being impolite." This early-stage nascent soul cultivator shouted, and stretched out his right hand to grab Lin Yi's collar. He really looked down on Lin Yi to the extreme, thinking that he could pick up Lin Yi and hang him up to beat him up. Lin Yi sighed helplessly. Why was it so difficult to let him go? Did he have to be happy only after looking for a beating? Speaking of which, this guy's face was really asking for a beating, then he would reluctantly help him. The divine sense whirlpool instantly hit this early-stage nascent soul cultivator, and at the same time, Lin Yi casually slapped him, directly sending him flying. After floating on the back of the flying spirit beast for a distance, he fell in a perfect parabola into the endless sea. The other golden core perfection cultivator of the Everyday and Everyday sect was as silent as a cicada in winter, not even daring to move a finger. Even an early-stage nascent soul cultivator was sent flying without a single move. He, a golden core perfection cultivator, wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between the opponent's teeth. Hey, aren't you going to save your companion? Although he can deal with the golden core stage sea beasts for now, there's an early nascent soul stage sea beast that just happened to pass by, and it seems like it wants to take a share. Lin Yi retracted his palm and turned to the golden core full circle cultivator with a smile. That's right. An original infant stage sea beast. The golden core paragon was shocked. This was not a level that he could deal with. His companion was in the sea, and his strength was being suppressed. It would be good if he could fight on equal grounds with him. How could he fight against an original infant stage sea beast? Just as he was about to command the flying spirit beast to descend to save them, the pressure of a nascent soul stage sea beast rose. In this sea, nascent soul stage sea beasts were definitely overlords. Just like the golden core stage sea beast that Duanmuyu had hunted before, in the area of foundation establishment stage sea beasts, they were overlords. Ah, help! It really is an original infant stage sea beast. The early infant stage, nascent soul stage cultivator that was slapped into the sea by Lin Yi struggled with all his might. He wanted to leap into the air, but he was held back by an inexplicable force. It was extremely difficult for him to even come out of the water to breathe, let alone leave the sea. The original infant stage sea beast was extremely domineering. It opened its mouth and was about to swallow the early infant stage, nascent soul stage cultivator. The early infant stage cultivator was dumbfounded when he saw the bloody mouth. He even forgot to do the most basic defense and dodging. Lin Yi curled his lips. This early infant stage fellow was really weak. If it wasn't for the fact that he was strong enough to hunt golden core stage sea beasts, Lin Yi wouldn't even bother to save him. With a soul-hooking hand, the original infant stage sea beast flipped over and floated to the surface of the water. Lin Yi waved his hand and easily broke open the sea beast's body, retrieving its inner core. The blood of the nascent soul stage sea beast slowly spread, dyeing the entire area red. The golden core stage sea beasts instantly fled far away. Although they really wanted to eat the corpse of the nascent soul stage sea beast, the nascent soul stage aura that wouldn't dissipate in a short period of time made the sea beasts afraid to approach. Such a method caused the two from the everyday and everyday sect to be dumbfounded once again. Only now did they realize that the rumors were not to be trusted. How is this the strength of a full-circle nascent soul stage cultivator? Even a full-circle nascent soul stage cultivator wouldn't be able to instantly kill our original infant stage sea beast, right? Many thanks to Senior for helping us. With the help of his companions, the everyday and everyday sect's early infant stage cultivator finally returned to the flying spirit beast. He bowed his head and thanked Lin Yi. Lin Yi waved his hand and said, "It's nothing much. You don't need to take it to heart. I'll forget about your mistake this time. If there's a next time, you won't be so lucky." Yes, yes, yes.
Senior is right.
We juniors will bear that in mind. The two of them no longer had the arrogance from before. They nodded and bowed in agreement. Then, they hurriedly bid farewell and turned to flee the place. Lin Yi, you can even kill an original infant stage sea beast in seconds. That's really amazing. Did you come here just to hunt for the original infant stage sea beast's inner core? After the two of them left, Duan Muyu asked Lin Yi excitedly. Lin Yi chuckled and said, "I didn't come here specifically to hunt for the original infant stage sea beast's inner core. After all, this is the area where golden core stage sea beasts are most active. However, something like what happened just now was something I could do. By the way, weren't you with your master just now? Where is he?" "My master and the golden core stage sea beast were injured when they were fighting. That's why I took the inner core, to lure those two away so that my master could escape. I don't know how he is now." Speaking of Yi Taoxian, Duan Muyu suddenly said with some worry. Fortunately, Yi Tongxian was not injured by the everyday and everyday sect. Otherwise, Duan Muyu would not have let those two guys off so easily. Lin Yi and Yi Tongxian were not familiar with each other, but for the sake of him being Duan Muyu's master, he still showed enough concern. "Is your master's injury serious? Which direction did he go? Let's go look for him now." Duan Muyu glanced in the direction they came from and said, "Master's injury is a little serious, but with the top-grade 5th-grade recover pill you gave him, there shouldn't be any problem. Moreover, Master flew directly back. At this time, if there are no accidents, he should have returned to the shore of the endless sea. There's no need to worry about his safety." Hearing Duan Muyu say this, Lin Yi nodded and said, "It's good that your master is fine. However, after he gets out of danger, will he come back to find you? Master and I have discussed this before. If there is such a situation where we get separated, we will each hunt some Foundation establishment stage sea beasts in the coastal waters and then slowly search for him. If we really can't find him, we will meet again in 3 days." Duan Muyu said a little shyly. It was not easy to meet Lin Yi, and Yi Tongxian should be fine. She did not want to be separated from Lin Yi like this. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.